that's recording, and then we'll do smack. All right. This fucking microphone. All right. We're live. Wonder how many people we're going to get on the live video today. I don't know. We have no way of knowing. I'm here with Julius, and I'm going to let you pronounce your last name because I will fuck that up. Go ahead.
Anglickas.
Yeah, I would have butchered that, and I don't want to do that. It's disrespectful. So, Julius is a professional MMA fighter in Bellator, and you're from Lithuania.
Yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lithuanian. Guy's a fucking stud. Super excited to be able to talk to him today about himself, his life, his fighting, his training, whatever. Who knows? Who knows what we're going to talk about? Who knows? It's going to be fun either way. All right, so I just got done explaining to him. Anybody who's watched the podcast at all yet understands what I'm doing with this, but I got the shoes that I relate to every guest that I have on the show. And today's shoe, for anybody who knows anything about sneakers, sneakerhead people, you're probably going to think that I'm being insulting by having Julius's shoe be the what are these called? Jordan Eclipse. So this is just like a basic, it's not like a real Jordan shoe. Like when people talk about having Jordans, like they're usually bragging. No one brags about having that. And okay, so there's a saying that we have in the United States, and there's honestly not a whole lot of people in the United States actually use this terminology. You've probably never heard it. Have you ever heard the term shit kickers?
No.
Okay. Probably some of the people that are watching that are from the U.S. have probably not heard that term either, but it's basically shit kickers are like shoes that you wear that you don't give a shit about. Like you can kick shit in them and it doesn't matter. That's why they call them shit kickers. The reason I'm using my shit kickers is because this guy kicks the shit out of people. There we go. That's how I related the shoes with Julius today. So I hope that wasn't too fucking corny. It probably was, but that's okay. Yeah. So we got the Jordan Eclipse. I'm gonna put them in the box in the TV on display. I'm gonna drop one of them. There we go. Thank God I got that mirror there. You guys can't see it if you're watching, but there's a mirror back there. Definitely makes it easier for me to do that. So anyway, how's life?
Good. Enjoying everything of it. Couldn't be more happy. I do what I love.
Yeah.
I never really liked just like having like steady job, just always waking up in the morning and going to work. Always wanted to do something with like athletics, sports related.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. Just wake up, go to train, go home, cook, eat, take a nap, wake up, go back to another practice, and just same thing goes every day. Sometimes it's boring, but I have to remember right away and appreciate it that not too many people get to do it. So I enjoy it. I'm blessed, and
It's amazing. It's funny, like hearing you say that. It sounds the way you describe your lifestyle sounds a lot like a bodybuilder in contest prep. So I can totally relate to it. It's the exact same concept. Like your life essentially revolves around your craft, mm-hmm. right? Your day is structured around training, eating, rest, recovery, all that kind of stuff, so that you can be at peak performance. And I think a lot of people really don't realize how that works and how that applies to other aspects of life too. Having that kind of structure, I think, is going to be extremely beneficial for you when you're not going to fight the rest of your life. You know, mm-hmm. There's a short shelf life for fighters. There's a short shelf life for any professional athlete, especially one where, you know, a contact sport. I mean, I don't even want to call it a contact sport, a combat sport.
Yeah.
It's not just contact. Like, you guys are legitimately beating the hell out of each other. So doing that constantly, it's not something you can do for the rest of your life. But when you're done with that, having that structure and having that, the ability to be disciplined enough to live that type of lifestyle is something that you can take with you and apply to anything you do. And that's my favorite thing about bodybuilding as well. So that's pretty cool, man. So when did you come to the United States?
I came to the United States 2005.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
so 2005, it's almost been like 15 years, 16 years. And I was almost turning 14. Now I'm 29, so I just now been living more in the United States than I was living in Lithuania.
Okay.
So now, we thought it's only gonna be for the summer because my parents moved here before we did.
Pull the microphone
Yes.
just towards me a little bit.
We almost dropped the water there.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, no. We thought it's only gonna be for the summer, and we were talking during one dinner and how great this is here and all opportunities. Because I got my first job when I was in United States. I was stocking shelves with like waters, sodas, whatever, and I was making $750. I was like, oh my god, that's so much money! Like, what, making $750? Like, I'll be a rich man soon. So. And that was our first job. So halfway through the summer, we were just talking about how good this is. And we were just like putting everything on the scale. And we just literally 5 minutes later decided to stay.
Yeah.
And then we agreed, okay, next week we're going to go to the school, like summer school, just kind of get to know people, get to know the system. Because they had a bunch of other also kids just going in with like, who don't speak English much, just to kind of get familiar, do some exercises, maybe write some papers, but it wasn't like actual school. It was just to get you going.
Right.
So we did that for the summer, and then we jumped into the whole high school thing.
So you came for a summer. Was that intending to just be like a vacation?
Yep.
Oh, wow. And so how does that work then? So obviously you weren't citizens. So are you a citizen now?
Yep. American. Yeah.
Awesome.
We got the green cards. My parents got divorced. They came to the United States. They were still helping each other. They were sending money back. Like, everything was great. My mom got married, and to Anthony, he's like the best stepdad ever.
Awesome.
And we fixed our visas, and because we were staying in Lithuania with my grandma, and we fixed our visa, and we thought, okay, we're gonna go to the United States for a visit. We're gonna check it out, and halfway through the summer we decided to stay. And when we made that decision, we also thought about, okay, we probably should get green cards as well, just to have it.
Yeah.
I became American. When was this? Like 4 years ago,
Okay.
I think. So it was an easy process. They want you to pass it. They just like check your history, what you did, where you worked, the schools you went. Okay, this guy is legit. He's fine. Let's have him go through it.
Yeah, man. And I don't want to get into politics, but it's an easy way for me to get into politics.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no idea where you stand on the whole thing. But like, this is a testament to, if you want to be a citizen of this country, it's not that difficult, right? Like, if you want to do it the legal way,
Mm-hmm.
you pretty much just come here, essentially prove that you're not a violent criminal,
Right.
and work and do what you would do anywhere else.
Yeah.
And after a certain amount of time, pass certain tests, and then you're a citizen, correct?
Correct. Now, with me, maybe it was a little bit easier just because my parents already had the foot in.
Okay.
And so maybe our case was a little bit stronger. While maybe some people, for example, like always use Latino guys, like in school, like Latino guys were like my best friends. So we kind of talked to them. So I feel like maybe it could be a little bit harder with them. If the whole family maybe would come illegally, then it's like, okay, how you start the process of getting the legal papers. So we were definitely on the lucky side because my parents already had it, and that definitely helped us. But yes, the whole process is just nothing but paperwork, filling out where you went to school, what you did, and
yeah. That's kind of how I've understood it too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge disconnect, I think. And one of the things that is very divisive in this country is like people's stance on immigration. And I think really at the heart of it, I think everyone agrees on it if they really understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone talked about everyone hated Donald Trump for his immigration policies, and it was like Donald Trump doesn't. He isn't against immigrants. He's married to an immigrant,
Mm-hmm.
which I found funny. Everyone talked about like he hates immigrants. It's like, then why is he married to one? Yeah. You know, he what he doesn't want is violent criminals illegally coming in here and committing crimes and living off of, you know, government funding and taking taxpayer dollars to give to people who aren't supposed to be here in the first place. That was the goal. And that, you know, the media misconstrues that and misreports that. And then now you've got 50% of the country that hate that idea, and then 50% of the country that are like, no, this is the right thing. And it's like, it gets really confusing. But then when you talk to a person like yourself who is an immigrant, the process of coming over legally is just not, I don't find it to be that complicated. Now, this is me talking from, you know, I was born a citizen. You know, there's multiple generations of my family that have been here. So it's not something I ever had to worry about. But yeah, I don't think there's anyone or any large demographic of this country that doesn't want immigrants to be in the United States. They just want them to come legally.
Yeah, they just want a good process. But there was a little bit like thinking when the whole immigration thing went down and some people were not being let in the country. I'm like, yeah, I mean, maybe it would be good if I just fixed my paperwork and just became American. just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case, just to be safe.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think there's anything bad about that. Yeah. Do you have any idea what the process would be like if for whatever reason you decided you wanted to go back to Lithuania?
I think United States passport is good for like, it's recognized by the whole world, I feel. You have it, you can go anywhere. Now, they might not be too happy. I don't know if like they allow dual citizenship or not, or maybe they would just take it away. But for me, at the end, it's just a piece of paper. Nothing really changed. Right. Some kind of legal document recognizes me as something else. But no, the whole Lithuanian community still thinks of me as Lithuanian. Yeah. So it's just a paper for me. It doesn't matter. If they want to take my Lithuanian citizenship away, I wouldn't feel any different.
Right, for sure.
It's like, really? But
I assume you have no intention of going back permanently or anything anyway.
Permanently, no. To visit, probably.
Yeah.
Because there is definitely some places where I want to see that I haven't seen, or like visit my hometown or like places around just to see how it changed. It's a little scary to think about it too, because I'm sure it's just like night and day from what it used to be. So I don't know if it's like I want to see, but at the same time I don't, because that might make me sad of how like things changed.
Yeah.
So I might come back, but I'm not thinking about it just yet. I'm just thinking about training, fighting, and just going with that.
Yeah. Do you still have family in Lithuania?
Yeah, some cousins, uncles, but they like scattered all over Lithuania or all over the Europe. So honestly, I wouldn't even know where to go right now.
I see.
Because it's like if I go to one place, I want to also go where it's like few more family members around, just so I could like visit more people versus traveling the whole Europe trying to meet up with everyone.
Right. And I from what I understand, I don't know the geographical layout of Lithuania, but it's nowhere near the size of United States. But still, like if people are scared, well, and you said they're all over, you have family all over Europe, so it's not necessarily just in Lithuania. But yeah, if you wanted to see everybody, it's just funny. I don't know. Like if people from a different country wanted to come to the United States and visit multiple people that they knew, one lived in California, one lived in Texas, one lived in New York, you're not going to see all three people.
Yeah, good luck with that. But
right.
But all the countries are so close. It's like when you look at the map, it's like literally looking like at the states of of the whole America. Mm-hmm. Like it takes like 3.5 hours to drive through Lithuania.
Wow.
That's what just driving through Missouri.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Illinois or somewhere. It's like it's literally that. You just drive 3 hours and you're ready to cross the whole Lithuania.
I didn't even think
or like that. Even few borders in Europe, just like boom, boom, boom. It's like you just passed few countries.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't. It's again, when you've lived in America your entire life, you don't think about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're a pretty big fucking country here, and so to get from one side of the country to the other if you're driving, it's a several day trip. It's even a long flight, really. You don't think about the fact that there's countries that are smaller than a lot of the individual states we have in the United States. So, yeah, that's wild. I would have never thought about the fact that you can go all the way across Lithuania in the same time you can get from St. Louis to Kansas City. That's crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Have you been back there at all, or to Lithuania specifically, since you've moved here?
I went back for a couple of weeks in the summer of 2008.
Okay. Was it pretty similar, or had it changed a lot already by then?
No, because it only was like
A few years.
few years apart, so nothing much too changed. Few big stores opened up, but I'm sure right now it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm like a little scared to go back there and just like I don't remember this. This street used to look a little differently now. Buildings everywhere.
Yep.
So I think I don't want to ruin the memory.
That's a good way of looking at it. I think that's cool. Yeah, and that's actually a lot of the reason that I started this podcast, and a lot of I don't know if you follow my Instagram page, the Sidetracked Instagram page, the podcast.
I followed it today.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know you had it. Yeah.
Yep. I just started it a couple months ago. A lot of people don't know about it, but the post, a lot of the content that I post, because obviously I'm only doing an episode like once a week, so that's not enough to give me enough content to post. So my initial idea was basically, because this podcast is just things that I find interesting and conversations with people who I find interesting and things like that. The content that I'm posting on there is a lot of stuff that's just like nostalgic to me, things from my past, things that kind of have molded me into who I am today. A lot of stuff from like the 90s and just like pop culture, music that I listened to growing up, and movies and stuff, just stuff like that. So like, I totally get that you want to like have the, things from your past, you want to remember them fondly. So I can totally understand, not relate necessarily, but I can understand where you're coming from when you say, going back might kind of fuck up that memory a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally understand that. So we talked a little bit before we started recording. The plan is to fight in May.
Yes.
Okay.
Can't announce the date yet.
Right.
But that's the plan. I'm still waiting on the contract, but it's pretty definite. And yeah, I'm excited for it. It's kind of been a while. I had a little injury, so had a little bicep tendon tear.
Yep.
Doctor said it's not too bad, but it kind of did take a while for it to heal. And it's still healing, but I can finally train hard, but I still need to be careful with it. But since I can train pretty hard and get that good feeling in, like you did the work, I know I'm fine now. Now I'm just getting in shape, doing everything I can, even though I need to be a little careful, but my camp wouldn't start for like a couple more weeks, so by then I'll definitely feel even much, much better. So
For sure.
So yeah, we're excited.
How long have you been in Bellator?
My second Bellator fight was this past November. My first one was November before.
Okay.
So it literally took me a whole year to get the second Bellator fight. So I fought in November, not this one, but the one in the past. I was supposed to have a short notice fight in Ireland in February. My opponent hurt his foot 2 days after we signed the contract. Okay, whatever.
Right.
A little questionable, but okay.
He was just scared.
Yeah, then he was supposed to fight another Lithuanian. So there was another Lithuanian in Bellator, and he was supposed to fight him. And yeah, I guess it fell through, and they pushed me to the Irish kid, and the Irish kid got hurt, and I was supposed to fight in May, and that's when Corona kicked in.
Right.
They canceled 3 shows or 4 shows, and then I had a rib injury in July, and that's when I knew like they're gonna bring back the Bellator. I'm like, great! I just waited for so long, and now I just got hurt right when they're coming back with the shows again.
Yeah.
So it sucked. Yeah, my original opponent we were thinking to keep the same opponent as from May. It was supposed to be this Brazilian guy, ex-champion in Bellator. So we were supposed to fight him, but we kind of asked if he could wait a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because that would have been better. But he took another fight. He lost. And I ended up fighting the guy that he lost to, and I beat him.
There it is. So, well, then it would have been a waste of time for you to fight his bitch ass anyway. Here I am talking shit. I'm the one that doesn't ever have to get hit, so I can say whatever I want.
Yeah, I tried to
keep it professional.
Yeah, I don't know. I never got into it. Like, would I say something? Absolutely, but that would have to be like really. The person would have to like insult me. He would have to be like actual dick. But even then, I know he's doing just for the TV.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's just full of crap. And once I beat him, then I'll talk or then I'll
say
do
whatever
something.
you want to say.
Because my first Bellator fight, there was this kid. He was making fun that I had a teacher's degree, like PE teacher. So my buddy Nico, he in New York, he sent me a screenshot. Well, he recorded a video on the guy's Instagram hitting mitts and saying like, oh, fucking PE teacher, I'll fucking finish you in the first round, blah, blah, blah. No PE teachers on my level, blah, blah, blah. So I'm looking at him like, oh, shit, damn it. Like, that got me like all nervous. And I'm like, damn it, this guy's going to bring it. But I beat him bad. And then I made a video of him talking. Like, he talks for like 2 seconds. Then it's me beating his ass for a few seconds. Then it's him talking for a few seconds. Then it's me beating his ass for a few seconds. And he got upset about it. He was commenting saying like, oh, I didn't think you were going to take it personally. I'm like,
what the fuck is the point?
You made a video about like cursing me out about my PE degree. And now that I make a video, you commenting saying how I should not have done it. What? No.
Yeah, dude.
I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Yeah,
that's dude, and that's one of the coolest things about the sport. I've been a big fan of MMA for a long time, and there was a big part of me that wanted to do it. When I got done playing college basketball, I'm just a very, very hyper competitive person. Mm-hmm. I always have to be competing one way or another. And the two routes that I kind of put in front of myself and said, I'm going to do one of these two things because I have to be competitive. One was bodybuilding, one was MMA. I'm glad I went down the road that I went. But at the time I was massively engulfed in the MMA community from a spectator's perspective. Like there used to be, at that point, there was the WEC still, and there was like the Versus channel. Do you even remember that? There was a channel on TV called the Versus channel. It was like it was like an alternative sports channel. Like they didn't do a lot of like basketball, football, soccer, baseball. It was like the sports that you don't get a lot of regular television, and most of it was most of what you got on the Versus channel was MMA stuff. They showed all the WEC fights. They showed tons and tons of replays of the WEC fights. And then, do you remember the show? It was like the Tap Out show. It might have been called Tap Out, with the Tap Out guys. You know who I'm talking about? The tall, curly-headed dude. You remember the clothing line, the brand? Yeah, of course. So does
it still exist?
I don't know. I hope not.
I don't know if it does. I don't think it does.
It probably doesn't. It was really bad. It was such a terrible clothing line. But whatever. The three guys that started it had a reality TV show. It was actually kind of similar to The Ultimate Fighter. It was actually, now that I think of it, it was very similar to The Ultimate Fighter. But they were guys. They basically, each episode they would follow around one individual guy, and I think most of them were fighting in the WEC, kind of working their way up. And the WEC was mostly, correct me if I'm wrong, that was mostly just the smaller weight divisions before they even had them in the UFC, right?
I'm not too familiar with the WEC.
Okay, yeah, it's been gone for a while now, probably a decade. It's probably been 10 years since the WEC has even existed. But there were a lot of good fighters, like Uriah Faber, and some of those guys came up through the WEC. That's where they developed a name before they came into the UFC. Because before the UFC, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't have the smallest couple weight classes.
Yeah, I think the Mighty Mouse.
Yeah,
I remember when they were like trying to create that weight class.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
So before it was basically when what happened was that the UFC just kind of absorbed or bought the WEC and took all the smaller guys in and made the top guys the UFC guys, and which I'm glad they did. I think you need to have every weight class represented, especially if you're the biggest organization.
Right.
So I don't even remember how I got down this rabbit hole. This is why the podcast is called Sidetracked, because I fucking talk and I start getting sidetracked. But anyway, no. Okay, so I can circle back to where I was. I was always fascinated by the fact that, and this has always existed in other combat sports like boxing and stuff, but the idea of selling your fight, like promoting your fight, basically just by talking shit. Obviously Conor McGregor's become a household name mostly for that. I mean, obviously he's an incredible fighter. In fact, I would argue that he's extremely underrated as a fighter because people know him as the guy who's entertaining, that talks shit and has, that's just really articulate, and, people like his accent and the money and, the flashy nature of it. But he's an incredible fighter. And I think there's no argument that he's the greatest of all time as it pertains to promoting his fights.
Yeah.
That's kind of a component of the sport, if you think. I mean, as a professional, like, selling a fight is kind of an important aspect of probably getting the contracts. Am I right?
That is right. But now with that, like, since he was good with it, he ran with it.
Right.
But if you're not good with it, I would say, don't try it. Like, just do talk shit at your level that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna try to do more than you actually can, you're gonna look dumb.
That's a really, really good point.
Because I can't really talk trash, so I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not even gonna try it. Because a few times people said, even they were at the interview after my last fight, they were saying like, oh, you're so humble. You think it's gonna not help you with getting big fights because you're not like calling people out, you're not talking. I'm like, no, like they already have this image of me as like the humble guy versus just like any guy, because most people like they just fighters or like good trash talkers, but they're already labeling me as like the good guy. Great, I'll run with it. It's a little different route, but why not? They pushing it, I like it, and I'm not great at talking trash. So it's like, I'm not even going to try it. I'm sorry.
It's just your personality. Yeah. Like, we obviously have only met a handful of times, but that was something that I recognized about you really, really quickly, is you're very humble, down to earth, kind of almost soft-spoken, which I think is even cooler because it's like an unassuming thing. Even outside of organized sports in general, you have people who run their fucking mouth a lot and talk shit and have to tell the world how tough they are and portray this image to make other people think that they're this tough guy. Usually those are the ones that are the biggest pussies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe not so much if you're a professional fighter, you're not a pussy. So it might not translate the same way in professional MMA. But in just the normal real world, a lot of the guys that are running their mouth all the time and trying to, make themselves look tough are doing it because they're not actually tough and they're insecure about it. I've always respected people who actually were tough that didn't have to run around telling everyone how tough they were. And that was like the first thing I noticed about you when we first, met and really had a chance to talk, was it was like, you're the exact opposite of those douchebag guys that have to show everyone and tell everyone how much of a tough guy they are. Because it's like, you're a bad motherfucker, but you would, if I didn't know you were a professional fighter and we just had a conversation, I would never think like, oh, wow, this guy's really tough. Yeah. Because you don't need to fucking tell me about it. You can just go out there and prove it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always, like, when people ask, like, were you scared? I'm like, hell yeah, I was scared. Like, do you like fighting? No, it's hard.
Man, like, yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to be like, nah, don't get scared. I'm like, really? Really?
That's bullshit. And when I say I'm glad I went down the path I went with bodybuilding as opposed to MMA, that's why. I would have been scared shitless, man.
Yeah, and it's like, no, you gotta act tough. I'm like, why?
Right.
Like, oh, because you got to throw off your opponent. I'm like, it's not high school. Like,
Right.
he's a professional athlete. If they found out that I'm scared to go out and fight, what are they gonna be like? Oh, Julius is scared. This is your chance. I'm like, no, I'm still gonna fight hard. Like, this fight or flight. I'm still gonna go in and do what I do. It's like, oh, Julius is scared. You can get him now. Like, we got him. Like, no. Like, if
Right.
you beat me, it's because you beat me, not because I'm scared. Like,
Your strategy. So let me compare this to something in bodybuilding. It really only applies to female competitors, because male competitors, we have our posing suits are pretty standard. There's like not much you can do with them. You can't have designs on them or anything like that, but females can. And I've had female clients or just acquaintances that want to get like a really elaborate suit, and they tell me I want to make sure that I stand out to the judges. And it's like,
suit isn't like the bikini thing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And it's like, that should be the last thing on your mind. Your suit doesn't fucking matter. You should want to stand out because your physique is better than everyone else's, or the best that you can make it anyway. That's what's important. So like in MMA, if your strategy is just to intimidate your opponent before the fight ever starts by running your mouth and talking shit, that's not a very good strategy. Your strategy should be like what you're actually going to do.
Yeah.
By the time you guys touch gloves and actually start to fight.
Yeah, and the making people scared is just a little sprinkle on the top.
Right,
Just like the
exactly.
suit. It's like, you look good, great, and okay, let's just sprinkle in just a little extra
Yep.
something. But
I
yeah.
could not agree more. Yeah, absolutely. But as a fan of, and this doesn't apply to bodybuilding because I could care less what people's suits look like, but as a fan of MMA, it is fun to like have those guys that have that boastful charisma, like the Conor McGregors of the sport. But what I was going to say before too is there's guys that have made an incredible career off of being more like you. Cowboy Cerrone, I think, is kind of in that boat. Like, he's not a big talker.
Yeah.
GSP is probably the greatest when it comes to that. That dude is the most humble, down to earth. He doesn't really talk any shit to anybody.
And you can't hate him. Like, you don't have reasons to dislike him. Conor, he'll have lots of fans.
Yeah.
But some people will hate him too.
Oh yeah.
With how GSP does it, you just can't go wrong. Like,
Correct.
You can't pick on the thing that, like, to dislike him.
So this is just an assumption I'm going to make as a person who has zero experience in this field, but it's just something that kind of popped into my head. Someone that runs their mouth and talks shit and blah, 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 it gives you a reason to dislike them. So if I'm going to fight someone, I would want to dislike them. I would want to have a reason to want to hurt them. You know what I mean? Whereas someone like you or someone like GSP, it's almost like, well, fuck, I kind of like this guy. I don't want to punch him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to kick this guy in the head. Why would I want to? He's a nice guy, you know? That could technically probably be a part of your own strategy is just be yourself and be likable. And if anything, that probably works in your favor as much as somebody who runs their mouth a lot.
Yeah, there are sometimes times where you, like, feel bad hurting the guy, especially if he's nice. If you two are such nice people, especially if, like, both of you spoke before the fight, it could be a little weird. For example, my buddy Anthony Smith was fighting Glower, and Glower was just, like, beating him up, and Glower was, like, literally saying, "I'm sorry, Anthony, this is just part of the job, blah, blah, blah." He didn't want to hurt him because Anthony wouldn't quit.
Yeah.
He just stayed in and just kept taking the beating, and like, Glover felt bad. He didn't want to do it no more.
I can imagine. I mean, I could totally see that. I could totally see that happening. People don't, when you're watching this shit on TV, like, you don't think about, like, the psychology of what's going on in the actual fighters' minds. All you are seeing is two entities clashing with each other and fighting. Like, you don't think about, these are human beings who have emotions and brains and things like that function the way everyone else's do. And yeah, like, if you're going out and you have to fight that aggressively against someone who you don't have a problem with, that's an issue. That would be hard. That would be very difficult to do. If it were me, I would, and again, that's another reason why I'm glad I didn't go into fighting. I'd rather just be a fan, because I don't, not only do I not want to get my ass kicked, I don't want to kick the ass of someone else who I don't dislike, and that, I think that's probably as common as it is to fight someone that you do like, or you don't like, I'm sorry. Bruce got through the barricade again. He's right out there again, just fucking ruining this episode like he does every time. Last week it was Macy. Macy was worse, but these fucking dogs, man. I got to figure something out so that they can't make noise. But whatever. But yeah, that's a crazy thing, and it's something that like you don't really hear much about, and you don't really think much about as a spectator or a fan of the sport. Is like, yeah, these guys have to go. Well, let me back up. 99% of the human population, or let's just say the American population, I'll speak on what I know, would be afraid to actually hit somebody as hard as they could. For any reason. You know what I mean? Like there are people who truly do absolutely fucking hate each other that will be in a heated a heated confrontation face to face, and no one will do anything. 9 out of 10 times they won't do anything because they're afraid to actually make that contact and do that.
It's a scary thing.
And that's two people who hate each other. Like, for you to have to go in the ring with someone who you don't hate, who you don't actually have some kind of bad blood with, and go full force and try to beat the dog shit out of them, that's a crazy thing psychologically. I think a lot of people probably watch MMA and think, I could do this. I thought it, dude. I was an elite athlete my entire life. I'm a strong guy. I was an elite athlete. I was a college basketball player, and I watch MMA, and I thought to myself, like, I could fucking do this. And like physically, I probably would be capable of doing it. Mentally, I don't think I probably would.
That's what I still feel about myself sometimes. Sometimes, like, oh God, there were like days where before the fight, like right before the fight, like 30 minutes before the fight, you're just freaking out. You just want to throw up. You start questioning everything. It's like, why am I doing this? Everything is weak. Like, I'm panicking. Your heart is just pounding. Legs are heavy, arms are heavy, and it's not good. I feel they should show a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because a lot of people deal with it. Before I thought it was just like, oh, it's just me. But then, like how we were talking about Cowboy, there was this video about him talking about fear and how he does it before he walks out, and how he's like terrified of it. But when it starts, he's all happy, ready to go. And it kind of does go away right when the bell rings. Mm-hmm. It just goes away. It's like you don't have time to worry about it no more, because now you just have to act on it.
And now it's fight or flight. And now it's just yeah, exactly. And I actually can relate to that a little bit from, playing more generic sports like basketball. Like if you're playing in a really important game in the postseason or whatever, or you're facing a huge rival or something like that in front of a big crowd, it's like all of those, the minutes leading up to tip off, you're just like, you're nervous, like you're fucking nervous. It's excitement. Like I'm sure you probably experience a lot of excitement and like, I can't wait to go do this. But then there's a bigger part of you that's like, fuck, I can't believe I'm about to go do this. Like, this is scary. Like, what if I don't do the, I don't think that you probably consciously think these things specifically. Like, what if I don't perform well? What if I lose? What if this or that? What if I humiliate myself? But I think in the back of your mind, you kind of feel like that could be the case, and you're just insanely nervous and genuinely afraid. Once tip-off happens, the second the ball goes in the air and somebody touches it, gone. Yeah. Now you're just playing basketball again. And it was always that the moments leading up to it that gave you the insane, like, indescribable anxiety. I can only imagine what it would be like fighting in front of a crowd, going into a combat sport. If I lose a basketball game, I lose a fucking basketball game. It is what it is. I got another game 4 days from now, and there's nothing humiliating about losing a basketball game, even though you might feel like it in the moment. But like, if you get knocked out in front of a live crowd, that's a lot more demoralizing, which would make it that much more scary going into it.
Yeah, but it's kind of only for for the fighter, because not too many people think it that way. For example, if I'm about to fight and if I'm gonna lose, I would think, oh my God, I'm a failure everywhere. I can't show my face at the gym anymore. Like everybody saw me like lose, and when you do go in the gym, everyone's like making the contact with you, like they know you lost. But nobody cares. 50% of people lose.
Right.
50% of people lose. Yes, they went to the fights. We watch like somebody loses, somebody wins, everybody cheers. I'm looking at the guy who lost. He's embarrassed, but then at the same time, it's like one of them had to lose. Like that was expected.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks out like embarrassed, but like then another fight goes on. We forget about them. We don't care about it. Like there was no shame, no anything, but yet that person feels bad. So that's like one of the things I try to tell people when they lose. It's like, dude, that was a badass fight. Most people couldn't do it. 50% of people lose. It just happened to be you. No one cares.
Right.
No one cares. Everybody would still congratulate you. You did something that most people wouldn't do. So that's nothing to make fun of at all.
Agreed. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, so it's just in a person's head.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's actually funny how that can actually relate to social media, marketing a business through social media, because of course that's what I do. And I've talked to a lot of people in my that do the same thing I do, that talk about, like I tell them, I'm like, listen, if you want to grow your business, you got to post more. Like you got to post more stuff. You can't just like take all this time trying to figure out what the perfect post is on on Instagram or Facebook or whatever you're using. And you just got to put content out there. You got to put stuff out there to get your face out there. And people, I think, overthink, like, what if people are annoyed that I'm posting so much? It's like no one knows, no one cares. You're the only one who's conscious of how often you're posting.
Yeah.
The people following you are not sitting there thinking, oh, Jesus, another fucking post from this person, I'm going to unfollow them.
Yeah.
Like, that never happens. Yeah. People are so, almost everything we do when you're consuming content on social media is completely subconscious. Like you're just fucking casually scrolling and you might see something you like and you'd like it and that's it. But like nobody's sitting there thinking this person's posting too much, I'm not paying attention anymore. Like that's super, especially the way the algorithm is now. It's like your stuff, it's a lot harder for your stuff to even be seen. So the more you post, the better. And the quote unquote quality of that content is another thing. Like it doesn't have to be this like beautiful professional, like it doesn't have to look like it was set up by a production company to make a fucking Instagram post. But people perceive it that way because they're so conscious of what they're posting that they get like self-conscious about it and think other people are going to perceive it the same way, and they're not. Like just like you're saying, like you feel humiliated if you lose a fight, but no one else is thinking, dude, Julius, wow, he's not even good. I'm not even going to be his friend anymore because he lost that fight.
Yeah.
No. It's not how it goes down. It's not how it works. It's exactly like you described. And it was the same way. It's the same way in any sport, really. I mean, even at the highest levels, because, I have a lot of debates and a lot of shit with people about LeBron James. I'm a big LeBron James fan. I don't know if you know that. I don't know that it matters, but I'm a big fan of LeBron James. I'm a big fan of basketball in general. Like I said, I did it my entire life, but the amount of like hatred and the amount of like biased opinions about the guy are really what make me stand up for him more, because this guy is unquestionably the greatest basketball player that ever lived. I don't care what anyone says. Like people are completely incorrect when they claim that he's not. What the fuck was the point of this? There was a point that I was trying to make here. Oh, him. Like, he's lost in the NBA Finals multiple times. And so, like, Michael Jordan never lost in the NBA Finals. And so that's always the debate. Jordan was 6 for 6 in the Finals. LeBron's lost in the Finals more than he's won in the Finals. As if that's the only thing that we need to base this whole debate off of. But, when LeBron gets to the Finals, I'm like usually bragging as if I have something to do with it, because I'm a fan, and I have a lot of people who know I'm a fan that like to talk shit when they want to see him lose. And then when he loses in the finals, I know how it even affects me. I don't know LeBron James. I have no affiliation to any team he's ever played for. It has nothing to do with me. I can only imagine how he feels when he loses in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like the most talked about athlete probably on the entire planet, and a lot of people really don't like him because he's so great. And then when your entire career is judged on how many championships do you get all the way to the finals and then you lose. I can only imagine what that feeling's like. By the 48 hours later, no one's talking about it anymore.
Yeah, everyone just moves on. Now I have a question because I have no idea, nothing about basketball. I don't follow it. I got cut from basketball. That's how I started wrestling. So did he lose the championships because his team was a little bit weaker than when Jordan played? Would that be the thing?
There are so many different factors that contribute to it. So Jordan played alongside multiple other Hall of Fame players were on his team. His coach for all 6 championships is probably arguably the greatest basketball coach in the history of the sport. He also played in Chicago his entire career, which is top 3 or 4 biggest markets in the NBA. Out of 30 teams, there's not a lot of teams that have as big of a city and as much money around them. So they have a lot more availability to pay players more money and stuff. And then LeBron James played the first 7 years of his, or maybe even 8 years of his career in Cleveland, which is like the smallest market in the NBA, bottom 3. So they didn't have a lot of money to pay bigger name players. He never played alongside anybody that was any good the first 8 years of his career. Still went to the finals with literally the year he left and went to Miami, the same team that he just went to the finals with set the record for the least amount of wins in a season. So he technically took the worst team in NBA history to the fucking NBA finals. Jordan never did anything close to that. Before Jordan had a Hall of Fame teammate in Scottie Pippen, he like never even came close to the finals. He never won a playoff series without another Hall of Fame player on his team. The other thing is the competition that they were playing against. The NBA now, dude, if you even make it to the NBA now, like if you're sitting on the end of the bench for the Minnesota Timberwolves, you're still better than 90% of the people that were playing in the NBA back in the day. Like, guys just weren't as good. You know what I mean? Imagine, let me put it to you like this. Imagine like one of the elite fighters of today fighting somebody from like UFC 1.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
it would be brutal.
Massacre.
Exactly. And it's not a fair comparison because that's like the invention of the sport versus now. It's a little bit different. But yeah, guys just weren't as good back then. And so Jordan, I will say this, Jordan was more dominant in his own era than LeBron is. But that's just because there's so many guys that are so fucking good now. LeBron's still the best player in the NBA in his 18th season, which is unheard of. Jordan didn't even play 18 seasons.
How many seasons did he play?
He played 15, but he also took a couple years where he like retired and played baseball.
Okay.
So he would have played 17 or 18 seasons, but he only played 15. So yeah, I mean, an 18-year career is a very, very long career, and to be the best player in the league still in your 18th seasons, no one's ever fucking come close to that. So, I mean, he's like a leading candidate to win the MVP in his 18th season, which is, again, no one's touched that. So, anyway, that's irrelevant. We need to talk about LeBron James, but it's just easy. I like to make parallels in comparisons to things that are, kind of relevant in the conversation. So, okay, so you said you have a teaching degree. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought I wanted to do, and I don't really regret it. I'm just confused why it was like the first thing I picked, because when I went to high school, you always were pressured to, okay, you gotta start thinking what you want to do after school. You gotta start thinking what you want to do in college and after college. So I'm like, well, I didn't live my life around, like, all my life has just been school and football and wrestling, so school is kind of the only thing I thought of. I'm like, Gym is my favorite subject. Well, I'll be a teacher. How cool is that? You'll grow up, you'll just go and just play games with kids all day.
Right.
How cool is that? So that's the only thing I thought it's out there in the world. So when I went to college, that's the degree I went for. And when I got it, like I started in upstate New York at the Brockport, transferred to Missouri Baptist and finished master's at Lindenwood. And right when I like finished it, that's when I also started fighting a little bit. And when I got the degree, I started also learning that I don't know if this is like the best thing for me right now. It's a good thing to fall back to. Mm-hmm. If the fighting doesn't work out, or even after fighting, it's a good degree to have. It shows that like, oh, you can work with people, you can train people, like it's good. So, but to be a teacher now, I don't know. The pay is not that great. Plus, it depends where you go. And teachers have like no power now. Back in the day, they used to have power. Now, the kid can hit you with a chair. You can't do nothing back. Yeah. You're gonna go to jail. I'm like, what? Really? Like, no. Like, I would get fired the first day then. So that kind of just looked too unappealing for me. So right when I got a degree, I just was like, I'm gonna just wait on that. I'm gonna just keep fighting. And that was around the time when I started getting my injuries too. I think it was after 2 pro fights, I was supposed to have my third one, if I'm not mistaken. I had meniscus injury and had to back out from the fight. Okay, we did the surgery, everything is cool. We scheduled another fight in the summer, and I had a first rib injury, and had to back out from another fight. And then for another half a year, we just couldn't schedule anything. So for a year and a half, I had no fights. I was just sitting in my room, waiting here in St. Louis, just like trying to train if I'm healthy, or, oh, this show is coming next month. They don't put me in. Oh, another show is coming 2 months from now. I'm waiting for 2 months. Nothing. So it's like I'm so early in my career that I was in a weird spot. I was good for my record, but my record was small, so it was like kind of hard to find like opponent that would be good for me. And it was so early in the career as well that you don't see the light. You don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. So it's not promising to you. So my parents don't see it as like, Julius is just going through some phase. He's thinking he's gonna do something with the fighting, blah blah blah, and just come home to New York. And so it's like that was tough to deal with. But like my teammates were like, no, Julius, just wait. Like, we seen fighters around. Like, you can do good things. Just wait. You fine. Just keep your head straight. Keep training. Once you're gonna get your chance, you're gonna pick it up and you're gonna keep going. So, literally a year and a half later, they say, hey, Julius, do you want to have a boxing fight on 1 week's notice? I'm like, I was a little iffy about it because I never, what's the word? I almost give other people more credit than to myself. Yeah. It's almost like I don't believe myself. I don't happy with what I got. And maybe that's why I always try to do better and better. So my coaches were like, no, like, you got this. You're going to beat this guy up. And I'm like, all right, fine, let's do it. Yeah. So we went there and like I beat this guy up just with 1s and 2s, just straight shots. Pop, 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 pop. I was shocked how easy it was.
Was this guy a boxer?
Yeah.
Like that was his.
He had a losing record, but he had, oh God, he had like 40 fights or so.
Wow.
But I mean, he had more losses, like twice as more losses than wins.
Still though.
But still, that's a lot of experience. While that was my first pro boxing fight.
Right.
And he had like close to 40 of them. So I'm like, all right, cool. So like I was shocked how easy it was just to kill him with 1s and 2s, that I did not open up with anything else. I did not mix up. Like the plan was like, all right, 1s and 2s, stick him with the jab, and like this will be good. And it was working so well that I could have like made it more fancy, like explored my tools a little bit more. But I didn't do none of it. So I was like, damn it. And after next month, I had my first MMA fight within like a year and a half after all the injuries. That was on LFA. That was my first televised fight on Access TV. So I won that. Awesome. And then after that, I think within that year, I racked in like 4 or 5 more fights.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, okay, cool. like it's happening. For like a year and a half, no fights. I was all depressed. And then within a year, it's like 5 fights, just dun. And then literally less than a year after my first LFA fight, I fought for LFA title. So that was awesome. Access TV main event for a belt. And usually LFA right now is almost like how, what was it called?
WEC.
WEC was back in the day.
Yeah.
Winners usually get called to UFC.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, cool. This is awesome. So I won that fight. But right now UFC is doing the Contender Series.
Okay. Yeah.
So instead of them sending me straight to UFC, they were kind of like, let's give this guy a shot at the Contender Series, which is, whoever might not know, like UFC is doing in the summer, like almost every Tuesday they have fights, maybe like 5 fights, and I explain it to people almost like a tryouts for UFC.
Mm-hmm.
So it is like kind of a separate show completely, but it's run by UFC, it's run by all the same people, and that's what it is. It's a tryout for UFC pretty much. You fight, you look good, you show fireworks, we'll sign you on the spot.
Right.
I was the only one not to get signed.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was overthinking a little bit, but plus at the same time, me and my opponent were the perfect match. Same height, same weight. Well, yeah, same weight. Very same build, same reach. And Similar style. He was kind of like a karate guy because he was training with the Wonder Boy. And we kind of gave that way too much credit. I could have finished him in the first round, but I was like so thinking so much about grappling that's pretty much all I did. I was hitting him a little bit, and then I would go back to grappling. And now that I'm like looking back at him, like this was like the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah.
Dumbest thing ever, because I was so tired. In the first minute, I held him against the cage. I was squeezing him as hard as I could. I'm like, all right, I'm winning the fight. I just have to squeeze him as hard as I can for 15 more minutes, and I'll be good. After the first round, I was done. I'm sure it was a little bit of adrenaline, maybe diet. The warm-up was kind of a little bit long too. So my head is down. And Quentin, my striking coach, is like, Julius, look into my eyes. I lift my head up a little bit. I look into his eyes. I'm like, all right, I did what he asked. And I drop again. So I literally looked at his eyes for a split second because he wanted me to. And I dropped again. And then you can see like him grabbing me by the head and lifting me up. That was after the first round. I had 2 more to go.
Yeah.
But I finished him. I choked him out in the third. But literally, that was just overthinking. And I get that sometimes I just overthink. Sometimes I sometimes overthink. And I'm trying to find that perfect balance. Because before each fight, I question myself a lot. And I try to find the reasons of like why I fight. Yeah. And sometimes you find it and you're like, okay, I feel good now. Now I'm going to go. And I kind of shrunk it down to just go out there, kick ass, whatever happens, and then you move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. So now you're not thinking about losing, you're not thinking about winning, you're just thinking about kicking ass.
Yeah.
Just go out and kick ass. Because sometimes it's like you're being timid, or sometimes you're being too aggressive, or whatever. So I just kind of was like talking to myself. It's like, what would be like the best thing? What was the things that I was telling myself in the previous fights that worked? And how should I make it shorter that I could just tell myself before the fight, okay, this is what I'm thinking. All right, good. And it kind of comes down to just pretty much just kick ass. Whatever happens, move on to the next one.
Right.
Because I do get like upset if I would lose. I'll be like, oh man, like this sucks. Whatever. But when you look on the TV, you see all these great fighters, they lose. You don't see them get discouraged. Mm-hmm. They wait 2 months, boom, they go out and they fight just as hard the next fight.
Yep.
And we're not making fun of them for losing, just how we talked earlier.
Correct.
So they kind of already know that in their head. If I lose, whatever, world is not laughing at me, dust it off, go back to the gym, let's schedule another fight, let's get it going.
Yeah, and I think something that you just said reminds me, and this applies to every sport, and it's like when you get down in traditional sports, it's usually when you get into the postseason, you get into the playoffs and the finals and whatever, where broadcasters talk a lot about experience, like who's got more experience and how that creates an advantage. And I think people underestimate that, because all the psychology you're talking about and the way you have to think about your strategy versus not overthinking too much and things like that, that all is just, you're going to get better and better and better at that the more times you fight, the more experience you have. Like when you're new to anything, if you're an analytical person, which I assume you are, I'm the same way, you're probably going to overthink things a lot. Like if your entire camp is around, okay, we're fighting this guy who has this style, here's how we need to approach this fight, you're probably going to be just completely going over the, like you said in the fight that you're talking about, where you could have won in the first round had you just, you know, focused on striking, but you were probably overthinking, okay, no, but the strategy was this, so let's stick to that so that we don't deviate from our entire training camp where we were preparing for this specific guy. But I think as you get more experienced in the sport, you're going to have a better balance of that, because you've been through those processes enough times to really know exactly where to go with it. And it's probably becomes second nature, probably becomes less mental and more just like organically happening physically.
It does become more natural, but sometimes the change of it becoming more natural, that could make you overthink.
Right.
My first LFA fight, it was bizarre because that was the first fight where I was in the cage itself right before the fight. I was just as calm as literally right now.
Wow.
It was bizarre. I couldn't believe it. 30 minutes before the fight, I'm just sitting like, this is weird. I don't feel like I'm going to go fight. Yeah. Like, this is the most weirdest thing. Like, I can't believe I'm so chill. And I wasn't fighting it. I wasn't trying to convince myself to be something else. Right. I just kind of went with it. And that was the right move to do, because I'll tell you what happened on the last one. So in my first LFA fight, I'm just like, okay, this is weird. And then I got into the cage. I'm looking at my opponent. I'm just like walking back and forth. On the video, you see me like having a like focused face, but I was just like, this is weird. It's like I'm literally thinking about anything, and like what I'm gonna eat later. And then because I told myself what I'm gonna eat later, I just start snowballing about what I'm gonna eat later. I'm like, I'm gonna eat a burger, and I'm like, wait, no, stop thinking about the food you're about to fight. And then I just start thinking more and more and more. But like once the bell rang, like you stop thinking, because then you kind of can't think.
Yep.
You're forced to fight, and I performed like amazing in that fight. Just because I was so calm like I am right now, I was able to give answers to whatever questions were happening within the fight, whatever the scenarios were happening in the fight. I was able to answer them with a clear mind versus like reacting to everything. My last fight, I couldn't decide to be between calm and just like this, or being like locked in and ready to go. Just fucking go. So I was like bouncing between the two, and it was weird for me. Right now, probably like all other coaches are looking like, oh, we're gonna confuse Julius. We're gonna I'm like, no, I don't care. What is this, high school? Like, yeah, go for it. We're still gonna fight. Whatever. I don't care. Is your Instagram still going?
No, it's probably been over an hour. I don't even care about that. This is the more important one right here.
Yeah. So my last fight, I'm like warming up. I'm like feeling good. I'm like locked in, ready to go. But then like 2 minutes later, my mind would go calm again. And I'm like, shit, like which one do I pick? Because I see myself doing both. And I like both. Yeah. It's like I like being locked in and like ready to go. But at the same time, whenever I'm calm, it's like, okay, like I like this fine too. And I was just like bouncing between the two. And I knew it was going to be a problem. When we fought, like it became not a problem. But the whole time right before the fight, it was just confusion. I get into the cage. I start walking towards my corner. And that was me being calm. And as I'm walking towards my corner, I'm like, no, you got to be more amped up. So the rest of the halfway to the corner, I ran. So like I walked towards my corner, and then my mind flipped, and I was like, no, you gotta run. And then I like jogged to my corner. It was like the most stupidest thing
Yeah.
ever, and it was bizarre. So yeah, that time I was just kind of like weird with it. It didn't stop me from performing good. So that's why I don't care like about saying my mental game and how like it sometimes it's all messed up. Like no, people not gonna use that against me. If they try to, they idiots. They better like come up with something really really clever to like throw me off, because when it comes to performing, I'm still gonna perform. So whatever. I think it's more interesting for people to hear what's going on in your head and how it is messy. It's like, whoa, like we want to know more of this.
I agree.
Because people look at the TV, and I used to look at the TV before I started fighting. I'm like, dude, he's like a superhuman. It's like what? And I never used to see him around me, because when I first started watching MMA, I was in Brockport, and I didn't see any fighters there. So it's almost like you don't even know that they exist. It's almost like they live on some different planet,
Right.
and like you don't know them. Are they like hiding or something? And then my teammates started like kind of training and fighting. So that was like the first time when I knew a fighter, but like he just like started there and then. So now I like kind of drift off. I'm not sure where I was going with that.
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
That's why I call this podcast Sidetracked Podcast. Yeah.
So like, yeah, when I came to St. Louis, just like everyone's fighting. It's like, it's crazy. And oh yeah, now I remember.
Yep.
So yeah, I think when a few times I talked about how I feel and how it's all messy, people think like, we want to know more of this, because like it shows how human you are and like how mind fuck it is.
Yeah.
Versus like we look at the TV and it's like, these guys are not scared.
Right.
They crazy human. They probably don't even get hurt. Like I'm watching all the fights. I'm like, they smash each other. So it's like, damn, I get injuries from like wrestling matches, and these guys are fine. But then once I figured out a little bit more, when I got into it, I was like, no, they all get hurt.
Yeah.
They all get hurt. They all get like medical suspensions. They all got to get stitched up. They all got broken hands. I'm like, okay, so it is not magic.
Right. And I 100% agree with you on I think a lot of MMA fans, and probably fans of all different sports, would be probably more interested to hear more about the psychology that goes into the sport from each individual athlete. Because the way that it's marketed, and I think they're doing it right. I think they're doing it correctly. It's just dumbed down. It's entertainment. It's a couple minute clip of one guy talking shit about the other guy, and then another couple minutes of him talking shit about that guy, and then now you're like, okay, cool, I want to see these guys beat each other up now. And then the bell rings and they do it. That's entertaining and that's cool. Like that's like the physical side of the sport. That's like the spectator, the sports aspect of it, the entertainment aspect of it. But like, yeah, learning how, because you're right. Like when you're watching any sport, probably especially combat sports like boxing or MMA or whatever, you don't think of them as just human beings. You think of them as your source of entertainment, and you don't realize like maybe that guy's got some relationship problems right now. Maybe this guy, at like the level that you're competing at, maybe this guy's got a full-time job that he's having issues with. Maybe he's struggling financially, and now he has to go out here and fight. Like, they're just as normal as anybody else, and they have the same normal people issues as everybody else. And yeah, when they get punched in the face, it hurts them just as fucking much as it would hurt me sitting here on my couch to get punched in the face. So it's like hearing people that are actually out there doing it talk about just who they are and what goes into their craft and their mindset when they're going into a fight. I think that's insanely interesting. That was like one of the main reasons that I wanted to bring you on the podcast. And we talked just over a year ago on New Year's Eve for a really long time. And fuck, I wish I could have just pressed record right then.
Was it like 3-hour conversation?
It was like the whole night. Yeah, don't think I talked to anyone else the whole time. I was in contest prep myself for a show. I had just started contest prep, so I couldn't drink, I couldn't eat any of the food. Like, I didn't really know that many of the people. And you don't drink at all, right? Yeah, so you were kind of in the same. You weren't training for a fight or anything, right?
No,
right. But still, we were still kind of in the same boat where we're not like we're not drinking, we're not a part of the party. We were there because we were invited, and we wanted to be there because we were invited, and we didn't want to be rude, basically.
Yeah.
But we talked the entire time, and I was like, fuck, man, this was a cool conversation. This needs to be on the podcast, which didn't even exist at the time. But I'd had the idea to do it long before then. And so, that's exactly why I wanted to bring you on, because that conversation was so cool, and getting to understand, like, the mindset of a fighter, a good fighter. Mm-hmm. As you know, there's a big difference between someone who calls themselves an MMA fighter and like a professional.
I don't even consider myself as a fighter yet.
Right.
Like, right. I feel I need to still, maybe people call me a fighter, but for me, it's like I'm still early in my career, which it's not too early, but it's like I'm heading somewhere. So I feel I would call myself a fighter maybe in 5 more fights.
Yeah.
If that. I might need more of those. Because it's like, again, I don't give myself enough credit always.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're your biggest critic. And that's probably why you're a great fighter.
Right.
It's because you don't think you're the best.
Right. And I feel that's like one of the things, like in a gym, when I see other guys, they just like, whenever they talk about opponents, it's like, oh yeah, my striking is better than this guy's. Oh, my grappling is better than this guy's. I'm like, it's like, I would say sometimes when it's like, definitely, like, yeah, my striking is better. Like, for example, my last opponent, my striking was definitely better than my opponent's, but I would really try not to focus on it, because if I focus on it too much, it's like, oh, I already won the fight.
Right.
No, it's going to be bad news. Because in wrestling also, if you think you won a fight, if you think it's going to be easy, then you like, somehow you just relax so much.
Yeah. And
the second the person catches you off guard with something or just gives you a little bit trouble, you start panicking. Oh my God, it's just like the worst thing ever. So I always think I'm going against some freaking Brock Lesnar, or it's like it's gonna be the hardest thing ever right now. So I'm just like being ready for anything. And if it's easier, then good. That's amazing. But I definitely don't want it to be like, oh my God, this is harder than I thought.
Right. Well, it's like if you have a test in school and you assume it's gonna be an easy test, so you don't study for it. Now you have the opportunity that maybe it's not easy, and now I'm gonna fail this test.
Right.
But if it happens to be easy and you studied a lot for it, cool. Now it's just easier than you thought it was going to be.
Just knock it out.
Yeah, same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The psychology behind any sport is like, if you go into any game just assuming, I'm just so much better than this person, or our team is so much better than this team, we're going to win easily. That's when you fucking lose. That's when the upsets happen. Generally, in my opinion, I don't think the upsets in sports are as much a result of the underdog performing better. I think it's usually the result of the person who's expected to win underperforming because they underestimated their opponent. So
there's this website, Topology. You know Topology?
Mm-mm.
It's a website where you just like plug in the guy's name, or if you Google somebody, one of the websites for the fighters is Topology. It's like you see their records, you see who they fought, when they fought, who they fought, what were the opponent's records. You can like click on the opponent's names, and then like it shows their stats and who they fought. So it's Topology is pretty much everybody goes to it. All the fighters go to it when they like looking somebody up. It's like, if I look up my opponent, okay, I'm looking at my opponent and who he fought. Okay, he fought a bunch of nobodies. They all had like losing records. Okay, so like I'm definitely one of his harder tests. So you can kind of like think about, okay, I'm definitely going to be the biggest challenge for him.
Yep.
Okay, he always went to decision. He doesn't have many finishes. Okay, so this guy's not like a killer. He's going to like try to sneak in a decision versus like knockout, win, knockout, win. It's like, okay, he's gonna come at me. All right. So you kind of like do a lot of basing of that. What was the thing we talked about before? I was gonna use that for something.
About
it has the percentages of who people vote, who they think they're gonna win, like who's the underdog or who's the winner. So like my past few fights, I was like underdog in all of those. They like There was some fights where I only had 7% chance of winning. Well, where 7% of people voted that I was gonna win. One of the fights was like 13. I think the last fight also people said that I was gonna get beat. So I was like,
And you won all of those?
yeah, I won all of those. But that's the thing. It's like, I don't know if I should look at them before the fight, because I never do. I kind of look at it just after. First of all, I even forget about it because I don't want to look at it. Like, I don't look too much footage on my opponent. I look at it, but not before the fight. I look at it 2 months before the fight.
Yeah.
I look at few fights. I get nervous over those, but I write down. It's like, okay, he does this, he does that, blah blah blah. This is it. Okay, cool. And I don't watch no more footage.
Yeah.
I just make little mental notes, and I don't watch nothing ever again. I don't get stressed over it. I just remember what it was. I remember the little mental notes. That's all I need to know.
That would be, if I were ever to have been a fighter, that I think that would have been the same approach I would have taken. I think overanalyzing what your opponent's going to do makes you too focused on them and not enough on what you can do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I would think that you would lose focus on your strengths and what you need to bring to the table, because all you're thinking about is how do I prevent them from doing what they're good at.
Yeah.
I think that's a great strategy, and maybe it's different for different people. Maybe other people need to constantly be analyzing footage. I don't know, but
you could analyze footage when you're fighting, I would say, for like a title against like really, really good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it's still like people change. They maybe just doing things by accident. They don't really mean it. They don't fight with like the same moves all the time.
Right.
But there is some things that people do all the time. For example, the funniest thing, the LFA fight, the first one. I fought this guy, Eric Murray, really good guy. And my striking coach, Quentin O'Brien, he was looking at the video 30 minutes before the fight. He's like looking at the phone. He's like, oh, okay, I see it. Okay, so if he's in his regular stance, he's gonna punch you. If he squares up and now his chest is facing you, he's gonna teep. If he switches stances, he's not gonna throw any punches. He's gonna kick from the back leg. So if you see his torso kind of square up with you, just be ready for the teep. And I'm like, okay. So I'm looking at the fight, and like his like shoulder is a little bit pointing at me, and he's striking. Then I see his shoulders go flat, and I was like, is he gonna teep right now? He teeped it, caught it, fired back right into his face. And then he switched stance. I'm like, is he gonna head kick me right now? Boom, head kick. I'm like, huh,
so
okay.
Pretty predictable.
So if you take all those little simple cues,
mm-hmm.
then the rest of it becomes like a normal fighting.
Right.
So you just take whatever he does. And for example, my last opponent, we knew if I throw too many punches, he's just gonna duck under and go for the shot. So, okay, the number one thing is keep the distance, hit him, but don't throw like pa 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 pa.
Yeah.
Because by the second, third punch, especially if I'm committing, he's gonna commit duck under, and I'm just gonna miss, and he's gonna take me down nice and easy. So with that, it was just cue to punch and always anticipate the takedown. Punch and always anticipate the takedown.
Yeah.
If we shut down his takedowns, then the rest of the fight just kind of becomes just like any other fight.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's awesome. And it's like this whole portion of this conversation is something that it reminds me of bodybuilding. It reminds me of the opposite of bodybuilding, actually. A lot of bodybuilding competitors, they come into bodybuilding with a normal sports background, regardless of what it is. Wrestlers, soccer players, basketball players, you name it, football players, doesn't matter. So in any sport, when you're competing against other people or another team, knowing what they do well and strategizing the way you're going to fight around what they do is always something that's really important. Like in basketball, we watched film on our opponents all the time. You know, our assistant coaches and stuff were at our opponents' games leading up to when we were going to play them, and filming it, and then that was part of practice, was going over what they do. In bodybuilding, you can't do that because there is no, it's not, bodybuilding's really not even a fucking sport. You're not competing against anybody.
It's against yourself. Yeah.
You have there's no defense in bodybuilding. You have no control over what someone else looks like. You just go get up on stage and flex your fucking muscles. That's literally all you're doing. Like, I can't go stand in front of you so the judges can't see you. Like, there's no strategy in bodybuilding. Your strategy is just to train hard, follow your nutrition, get enough rest, get enough recovery, things like that. Use your supplements, do what you got to do. But it's 100% you. You have no control over what anyone else does. So like it's a huge mistake as a bodybuilder to go look into what your competition's doing, and a lot of times you don't even know who your competition's going to be until the day of. But even if you do, like, going and looking at their Instagram page or whatever they're posting, or it's the dumbest thing you can do in bodybuilding. It's obviously, you have to do it in other sports because you have to have a strategy to counter what they're going to be able to do to you. In bodybuilding, you can't do that. There's just no, like I said, there's no strategy. The strategy is just be better than you were last time and hope for the best, because you have no control. If someone shows up, and it's the shittiest thing ever. It's the hardest part about bodybuilding has nothing to do with the diet or the cardio or the training, none of that. It's the mental aspect of it, because you might do everything perfectly. You might train as hard as you can, do all your cardio sessions, get all your nutrition in perfectly, look the best you've ever looked, look the best you possibly could look, peak perfectly the day of the show, and then get there and then get backstage and see some motherfucker that's just better than you. And it's over already.
Yeah.
You haven't even gone out there and done anything, and you're like, fuck. All this work, and I'm definitely going to lose, It happens all the time, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's at that point where I'm like, I wish I could fight this fucking guy.
Yeah.
I wish I could give myself a chance by doing something, but you can't. That's not what it is. That's why bodybuilding, like I said, it's really not a sport. We call it that because it's just an easy way to label it. It's a way for people to understand like what it is, but it's more of like it's a lot more similar to like a beauty pageant.
Yeah, but it is, I feel I would consider it as a sport.
Yeah.
It's just when you're competing, it's not as sport like when all other sports like you compete, you do something physical, while in bodybuilding, all the physical part is in the gym.
Yeah, it's all on your
not when you go on the stage. It's
right.
just like the last finished product
you're
showing off.
And that's why, like, all of the competition, the competition aspect of bodybuilding really is just you versus you every day in the gym. It's not really you versus the guy you're on stage next to, because you're not doing, like I said, there's no defense. There's no, you can't get in there. You can't even do the little things. Like, you can't even like talk shit and get in their head and make them perform differently. It has has no effect on it. It's what your body looks like. So the competition really is lift, if I'm doing bent over rows, and I did 250 pounds last week for 10 reps and hit failure at 10 reps. This week I want to do 255 for 10 reps, or want to do 250 for 12 reps, or whatever. You just want to, that's your competition. Beat what you did last week in the gym. Or if you missed a meal or something like that, like, be better this week and don't miss that meal. Or hopefully you don't miss any meals if you're a bodybuilder, but just improve on what you're doing, and then hope that when you get on stage the next time, you look better than you did last time. That's all you can do. That's all you have control over at that point. Whereas in real sports, you have to, what your opponent is actually going to be doing is something that you have to take into consideration, or you're not going to be prepared enough.
Yeah. For fighting, sometimes you feel like you compete against yourself and not opponent.
Yeah.
It's the most bizarre thing. Me and Zach Freeman were talking about it, and especially when you get into like later rounds and when you're like super, super exhausted, it's almost like you're not even fighting the person. You're not trying to beat him up. It's almost like you're just you're literally fighting yourself to put yourself in the better positions to do little better things. It's almost like the person doesn't exist, like that just erases itself. If he's on top of you, all you're thinking is just like not to beat him up, but all you're thinking is just like, I need to shrimp out and get up. If you're against the cage, I need to spin around, but like the person almost disappears.
Yeah.
It's almost like you telling yourself to do things. It sounds bizarre because like you fighting, you're trying to do that while the person is holding on to you, but it's like so much in your head that like, no, Julius, you're so tired, but twist them around. A few times before my third round, after the second round ends, I sit on the stool. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this no more. I'm tired. I'm dead. I can't do this no more. But I already won 2 rounds, and I'm just like trying to look around myself to realize how whenever you fight, you feel like you're in hell.
Yeah.
And everything just looks different around you. You just literally feel like it's like magic and just hell. So like in between the second and the third, I'm just sitting, I'm like trying to look around, realize how everything in reality is simple. It's actually simple around you. So as I'm talking to myself, oh, I can't do this no more. I can't, like, I'm done. But I won first 2 rounds. So like, just you got to do this again. And I'm like looking around, realizing how simple it is. And I'm like, just do that one more round. Just work out. It's not a fight. Just work out. Pretend you're working out with a partner really, really hard for 5 minutes. And I always tell myself like 5 minutes of fighting is like much longer than 5 minutes of a workout.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking 5 minutes workout. Okay, I've done 5 minutes of the workout before. We've done this 5 minutes I hear the bell all the time, start and go off, and rounds end in the practice room all the time. So like 5 minutes is okay. It's not. It'll come.
Yeah.
It'll come sooner before you know it. Like it always comes a little bit later than you know it. But it tricks your mind a little bit. That's like, okay, no, just 5 minutes of workout. So there were a few fights where in the third round, I wasn't even fighting. I was just thinking of a workout. Just think 5 minutes of workout. Just grapple with them. Just how you do in practice. Just punch, just shadow box in front of his face, just like how you do in the third round. I mean, in practice. And when the round starts, I already tell myself like, nice, I won.
Yeah.
Before the third round even starts, it's like, cool, like I just fixed my mind and now I can move on and keep moving for the 5 minutes. Since I won and I performed good in 2 rounds and I was always ahead of the person, the third round, I don't want to do that. But if I talk to myself a little bit and I just create like 5 minute workout type of deal, it's like, okay, I already won this.
Yeah.
I just have to work out hard for 5 minutes. It's almost like if you don't want to jog no more and someone's telling you jog for 5 more minutes. Fuck, I don't want to jog for 5 more minutes. But it's not too far off.
Right.
Like, it's not too far. It sucks. It's burning.
Yeah.
It's like the treadmill is burning and you burning and everything's around you is burning. But it's 5 more minutes, and it'll come soon.
If it were 5 more minutes of doing anything else, it would feel like nothing.
Yeah.
But when it's 5 minutes of doing something like that,
really horrible.
It feels like a lifetime.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
But that's why it's like while I'm sitting on that stool, it's like I'm looking around like, I'm like, calm down. I'm like, okay, no, this is simple. This is not magic. Like, I'm in the cage. My coach is here. The time is going just how it's supposed to go.
Right.
Okay, I'm exhausted. Okay, but this is not fighting no more. You already got punched. You already don't feel punches. You don't feel no pain no more. You're just too exhausted. Okay, just think 5 minutes of workout. You've done 5 minute rounds many, many times. It'll come really, really soon. So just feel good about it. You already won. Just work out for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I stand up. I'm like, okay, I already won.
Yep.
Just got to do this again.
That's fucking awesome. It's seriously really cool to hear that. Having, being someone who's never done anything like that before. It's like I said, we keep coming back to this. Like that's I think a lot of people are more interested to hear this type of shit than the whole I'm gonna beat this guy's fucking ass.
Yeah.
I think this is way more interesting and this is really, really cool shit.
Yeah. I think people also want to know a little bit more about the weight cut. Like I did a few mistakes about the weight cut. This time what I did, usually, okay, let's say weigh-ins are tomorrow morning. I would wake up today and I would do a workout just to like get the blood going, and then I would do maybe like a few rounds of sauna or a few rounds of hot bath throughout the day.
Yeah.
Not killing myself in one hit, but just kind of sweating it out throughout the day. And few times if the weigh-ins are early, I would cut most of the weight the day before. I would have trouble sleeping, but I would still fall asleep. My idea for my last fight was like, all right, I'll cut most of the weight. I was about, if I wake up this morning, I was, I think, like, let's say 217. And I'm like, all right, I'll cut it to 210. I'll go to bed. I'll float 2 pounds. I'll wake up in the morning and I'll just need to cut maybe a few.
Yeah.
It was the worst thing that I could have done because I did not sleep for 1 minute.
Ugh.
I cut it too much weight because I was like, I'm asleep all night.
Yeah.
I'll wake up. I'll feel good but dehydrated and I'll just kill the last pound before the weigh-ins. I go to bed at 9 p.m. Couldn't sleep. My heart was pounding. I would get hot instantly. I would get cold instantly.
Yeah.
My heart is literally shaking my whole body. I'm like, is this an earthquake? Like,
Right.
from 9 p.m. till 7 a.m., not 1 minute of sleep.
Ugh.
And I still had to go in the sauna and cut weight. So I was like trying to preserve and get some sleep, and I got completely opposite. I got no sleep. So next time I'm just gonna, and the weight came off very, very easy. So I think I got that down to the T of being hydrated and water just falling off you when you're in the sauna. So I think next time I'm just gonna lose my ego or whatever it is. I'll just be like, nope, I'm gonna wake up an hour early because that was my thing. I did not want it to wake up at 6.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna wake up at 7 and go check my weight and do anything if I need to. So next time I'm just probably not even gonna cut as much weight at all the day before. I'm gonna wake up and just do it in one hit, cut like 8 pounds right there and then, and step on the scale. Because that's the thing. I feel I was so exhausted in my last fight because my body, it was such a bad shock the whole night in like dehydration mode that it was like damaging itself.
Yeah.
While if I lose 10 pounds right now, step on the scale and put the water back in, my body would be like, did we just get dehydrated real quick?
Right.
I don't know. Like, I think we lost the water weight, but now we have the water. Okay, well, that was weird. Okay, no big deal. So it's not damaging itself. While what I did was like, wait, we are dehydrated. Oh my God. And this guy's trying to sleep right now. So my body was literally panicking for the whole night. And in the morning, I just cut the last few. So next time.
But you did make weight though.
I did easy.
Have you ever not made weight?
No.
Good.
You always made weight. Yeah.
Did you hear about the guy? I think it might have been for the fights last night, the UFC fights last night. The guy was like, I think 10 or 11 pounds over. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I saw that. And he was like, started crying.
That's crazy.
And that's the thing. It's like, when I look from outside, it's like, what were you doing? Like, what's your problem? You're professional, da-da-da. But now it's like, since he was like crying, I kind of do want to know what his mindset was. Like, what was he going through?
Yeah.
Because 10 pounds, that's a lot. That's literally like almost not trying. I mean, everybody probably cuts like 20-ish.
Yeah.
But to miss that much, it's like really like, I kind of want to know what he's going through.
Right.
Like, because that would be interesting.
I would be very interested to find that out. Because you're right. That's a huge miss. Like, I've never, I think they said that was the biggest weight miss in UFC history.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like a buddy of mine, I know I asked you about him when we first talked a year ago, and I couldn't remember if you knew him or not. You know Nick Labasco? Know who he is?
I heard the name.
So the reason I'm bringing him up, he was a buddy of mine. We went to high school together. He's a really, really good wrestler. Comes from a wrestling pedigree. His whole family's all wrestlers. Mm-hmm. I think he was the best of all of them, though. He fought, I don't remember the organization he fought in. What was the organization Sanchez was fighting in before he went to the UFC?
There was LFA, but oh my God.
It might have been LFA. I don't know.
There was LFA. There was, oh my God, I can't believe it. It was something else, but they just kind of combined and now it's just LFA.
Okay. Probably was the LFA. But Nick was fighting in the LFA. I assume it was the LFA. Nick's, I think, 2 years older than me. So, and this would have been probably 4 years ago. So he was probably in his early 30s. Mm-hmm. And he was good. I mean, he had a really good professional career. but it was a fight I was going to. It was actually Sanchez's last fight, I guess, in the LFA.
Was that for the title?
Yes.
Okay, I was there for that.
Yeah.
He made the guy's face like crazy.
He fucked the guy
Yeah,
up.
that I don't think that was that was not LFA. Oh my god, I can't remember now. It was such a simple name. Jesus. Yeah, but yeah,
it'll come to you.
Yeah.
That was a crazy fight, though. He fucked that dude up. That guy, I will give that guy props, though. He went the distance with him, and he was getting murdered that whole fight.
He was getting wrecked,
and he kept coming. I couldn't believe it. I was like being there. That was the first. That's the first. I think the only time. It's the only time I've ever like watched MMA up close. That guy was just getting destroyed, and it was like, dude, if that were me, I'm done. I'm out, And this dude just kept coming. But anyway, to finish the story about Nick, so Nick was I think he was either so Sanchez was obviously the main event, and I think Nick was supposed to be the fight right before Sanchez. Mm-hmm. He didn't make weight, and he just retired on the spot. Like, he showed up to weigh-ins and he missed weight, and he just said fuck it, man, and didn't fight, and hasn't fought since.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty. It was kind of disappointing, but it is crazy to think, like, because I mean, technically he would have been kind of in the prime of his career, I would think. MMA, like, your prime's kind of like your 30s, mid 30s, or am I wrong?
Depends by weight class.
Okay. He was 155. I think.
Yeah, then I would say early is probably not too far off, because I guess like smaller guys depend a little bit more on the speed.
Yeah.
So if you get like a little bit past 30,
yeah, that's true.
You're gonna slow down. While big heavyweights and 205ers, they all same speed ish, and as long as you have that old man strength, you'll be fine.
That's true. Yeah, he was a smaller guy. He definitely had speed on his side. But yeah, I mean, it was devastating enough for him to not make weight that he just quit the whole sport permanently. And I think a lot of people probably assumed that he's just not going to fight tonight. He'll end up coming back and fighting again. He never did. So, yeah, I mean, that was really it for him. Him not making weight was enough for him to be done competing entirely.
Yep.
And he would have been 31 or 32 at the time. So it's not like he was too old.
Yeah, he definitely had some more left.
Yeah, he definitely had some left, and he had a good record. I don't know what his record was, but he had a overwhelmingly winning record. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been like the co-main event of that, of that event. Mm-hmm. What's your record?
9-1.
Okay, great. That's great. When did your one loss come? Like, was that early on, or
that was my second pro fight, I believe. My second pro fight. I fought Cameron Olsen. I think he was 2-1 at that moment. So, yeah, oh my God, that was just... Well, yeah, early in the career, so he was probably definitely much more mature than I was. And, yeah, I was supposed to fight in Kansas City for Shamrock, and my guy did not show up on the fight day. And we're like, well... Okay.
You just didn't show up?
Didn't show up on the fight day.
Weird.
Yeah. And we're like, okay, what do we do now? So I was on the contract with Shamrock, and because of that, they let me take a fight on Victory. Okay. It's like a square cage. Pretty cool.
Huh.
Yeah, not circle, not anything, but just a square, so it's interesting. And that fight would have been...
Well, hold on. Is it still a cage, or was it...
Still a cage, but it's just a square.
Okay.
And that fight would have been maybe 5 weeks or 4 weeks later. 4 weeks later, I think. But I bought tickets to go home to New York and visit my family. So we're freaking literally, they didn't accept the fight till I got home. I mean, they had no idea.
Right.
But it was just my luck that they literally accepted the fight when I get home to hang out with my family. So I was only home for a week. I get back to St. Louis, and we were really big jiu-jitsu. I mean, we still are big jiu-jitsu gym. We weren't doing so much wrestling, and at the same time, we didn't have too many big guys consistently training wrestling or just being part of MMA. Mm-hmm. So it was, I guess I did not get ready for it as much as I should have. I did some jiu-jitsu and I did lots of striking, but this guy was primarily wrestling.
Okay.
So every time he would tie up with me, I would be like, oh man, he's so strong. I can't turn him. Like, this is so hard. Because I just felt, I guess, I just did not get ready for it. And I was also like sick for that fight. And oh my God, another thing was funniest thing. Well, not funny. I hated it. Almost dropped a big F-bomb. So usually it's the weigh-in day and the next day you fight. You show up on the weigh-ins. So I messaged the guy, the promoter. I'm like, hey, how early you want me to get there before the weigh-ins? He's like, today or tomorrow? I'm like, tomorrow. He's like, you gotta be there today for the media. I'm like, what? And he's like, you're not on the group chat? I'm like, no. Then he freaking adds me to the group chat that was like freaking 2 months long, updating everybody, sending everybody posters to like post of like 1 month away, fights, da da da. I'm like, fucking thank you. I'm like, well, I'm 5 hours away, because this was in Iowa. I'm like, I'm 5 hours away, and the media thing was 3 hours from now. I'm like, there's no way I can make it. He's like, well, you gotta be there, you can't fight, da 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 da. I'm like, you piece of shit. Because like, it was his fault.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I dropped everything. I quickly grabbed just threw whatever I could in the bag, and I'm just driving. I'm doing 100 on the highway for like, GPS said 5 hours. I made it in 4.
Wow.
So that was pretty big for me. And I was still 2 hours late. But they waited for me. And we got the whole thing done. And I did not even cut the weight. Like, I was all so stressed out that I was losing weight because of that. I had no scale, no nothing. I literally stepped on the scale 202 without cutting any weight, and I'm like, well, this was easy, I guess. I don't know.
That happens to bodybuilders a lot. I don't think they even realize it, like when they're struggling to make their weight class. And it's not that common. You don't have to. Like, it's not as big of a deal like it is in MMA. Like, if I don't even have a weight limit in my weight class. I'm a super heavy. I can be as heavy as I want, but any of the other weight classes, if you have to be, let's say, under 198 to be a light heavyweight, and you're close, like you're walking around at 205 or something, it's sometimes a good strategy to suck down to the light heavyweight class as opposed to be on the small end of the heavies. Yeah. And a lot of guys stress out so much about, fuck, am I going to make it? Am I going to get to 198? And you're doing everything you can without, like, you guys don't have to worry about what your physique looks like. So you can, as long as you make that weight, it doesn't fucking matter. Within bodybuilding, you got to try to make weight, but you also have to keep in mind, like, you got to look your best too. Yeah. So you can't do anything too drastic to make the weight, because it can completely destroy the way you look. And so, guys, I think sometimes guys get so stressed out about whether or not they're going to make weight that the stress just causes that weight to fall off anyway. Because I've never had anybody miss weight. I've never had a client miss their. I've worked with so many people, never had anyone miss weight. I even had, like, my client Blake did nationals 2 years ago, and we got him down to light heavyweight, which was a little bit of a struggle. But so, like, the morning, so he had to fly to Miami. The show was in Miami. So he flew from here to Miami, and then that day he had to get on the scale. Well, he woke up the morning of his flight, I think if I remember right, he was like 200 on the dot. Hadn't eaten or drank anything, and he still had to drop 2 more pounds. And he had to go to the airport, get on the flight, fly the whole way there. So there's nothing he could really do. You just got to sit on a plane. And then basically had to go straight from the plane, check into the hotel, and then go weigh in. And so it was like, fuck, he's still 2 pounds over, and there's nothing we can really do to get him there. So I basically told him, I'm like, you can't eat or drink anything until after you weigh in. Yeah. Weighed in at 197. Like, he just dropped 5 pounds, I think, just stressing out over it in that day. Physiologically, there's no way he actually, lost 5 pounds of fat or muscle or anything. It was just,
that is still like a lot of the whole traveling thing. It's exhausting.
It is. It's super exhausting, and it's stressful even if you're not going to compete in a bodybuilding competition. It's just, traveling is stressful. I kind of enjoy it. I kind of enjoy that. It's exciting for me. It's weird, whatever. But the stress of whether or not he needed to make weight, I think, is completely contributed to him losing enough weight without even doing anything. Sounds like it was probably the same situation for you.
Yeah, I didn't eat much, and yeah, it was early in my career. I just did not know much.
Yeah.
I just had no idea how things work, and no one really holds your hand.
Right.
It's weird. It's like, I mean, coaches, they have their own lives. They have like what, so many fighters in the gym. You can't hold everybody's hand. You can't
Right.
train everybody like, eat this, make sure you do this, blah blah blah, because some people probably don't even care.
Yeah.
So it's kind of have to show that you care a little bit, and then they'll put time into you. But yeah, that was just mistake on everybody's part. It's like, whoa, how did we miss out that we needed to be there? But at the same time, one of my coaches, Matt Ricehouse, he kind of broke it down. He's like, Julius, stuff like that is going to happen all the time.
Yeah.
There's always going to be stuff like that. So it's good that you learn right now of all this craziness, something falling through, something popping up, of all this just like weird stuff that you need to do or don't want to do. It's all going to happen. So if you just realize right now they're going to have to deal with it, then fighting will be just a little bit easier. So I always, around the fight, I always just assume there's going to be something popping up. Yeah. Always something weird popping up. But with the better promotions, that's much harder.
Yeah.
Because they're so professional. They have everything under control that there's not going to be any like stupid surprises. Oh, you missed your media time. I'm like, how was I supposed to know that you guys are best of the best? You guys was supposed to like let me know or like keep a track of everything. So yeah, in Bellator, like I liked it, and I almost liked how they managed everything with the corona.
Yeah.
This fight. My first Bellator fight, it's like, okay, fighters meeting at 5 p.m., blah, blah, blah. So we all would go into this big room and we all would have weigh-ins one at a time after each other. And like, so it was always crowded.
Right.
And you always see everybody. And there's just people everywhere. This time with the corona, we were like so alone away from everybody. And it was like fighters meeting on the Zoom. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, weigh-ins. Everybody in the warm-up area had their own little like tents. It was just like almost everybody had like little curtain boxes with little mats inside. So like you don't bump into nobody.
Yeah.
You have your own little space. You work out. Weigh-ins was also awesome. I got up there. I was one of the first guys to show up. And they were like, okay, Julius, we marked you as a third. We're going to come and get you. So I was like, cool, I'm just hanging out in my sauna. And then okay, Julius, come, we'll weigh you in.
Yeah.
So they almost like they made it so much more simpler.
I think that's how it should be, especially for an organization that's as prestigious.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot. But when we got there Saturday night, we had to quarantine the whole Sunday. We could not leave the room the whole Sunday or see anybody. So I'm just sitting in my room watching TV. All right, I'm going to do a 15-minute workout just to get myself moving. So shadow box, stretch, blah, blah, blah. Because you don't want to just sit in the bed the whole day. So I was like pacing back and forth in my room. So that was just the only thing that was a little iffy. But besides that, I kind of liked how it was. They just made everything simple. We weren't like all crammed in one giant room for the meetings.
Right.
Everything was just like simple. Also the weigh-ins, instead of all of us just looking at each other, everyone's dead. All right, let's start. And go like rushing to be the first ones.
Yeah.
No, you're just like, okay, Julius, your turn to weigh in. Come with us.
They're just organized.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
I actually had a question that I've been meaning to ask this entire time, because we talked about this and it ended up coming up, and I'm an idiot and forgot the dude's name already, but you'll know who I'm talking about right away. We talked a little bit about the difference between Bellator versus UFC and how sponsorships and stuff are different. Because everything, if I'm not mistaken, like Reebok, I think, kind of owns the rights to all the sponsorship stuff in the UFC, correct?
Yeah.
So if you're like a lower level UFC fighter, like not a contender or anything like that, you're probably relying on sponsorships, or you should be relying on sponsorships, or you used to be relying on sponsorships to, fund your life, basically. And now you don't really have that opportunity in the UFC, right?
Yeah.
And so Bellator, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think it's only during the fight week when they don't want you showing your sponsors.
Okay.
Because like during the fight week, you know there's gonna be some interviews, you know there's gonna be some photos, so you might wear some sponsor T-shirt or like some pants or shorts to just kind of show off different names. And so I think they only don't allow that during then, but that's when most sponsors do want to be seen.
Of course it is. That's where you're being seen the most, and therefore their brand is being seen the most.
Exactly. So most people definitely lost most of their sponsors, but there is some people who, some companies who do know they're gonna get exposed even like outside of the fight week, just
Right.
because that's probably because the person is a little bit more known, they have a little bit more followers on social media.
But like I said, as a lower level UFC fighter, they might not have that following or might not have all
Yes.
that exposure. And so, but in Bellator, it's just anything goes with sponsorships.
Yeah, whatever you want to do, whatever sponsors you got, great. Do whatever you want. However you get paid from them, that's your business. Do whatever you want. Because, yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I could be completely wrong. The sponsors needed to pay UFC first before they would be able to pay the fighters themselves. I could be wrong on that. I heard that somewhere, but I'm like, really? Like,
Right.
so now you gotta like pay UFC before you even pay the fighter.
Right.
But now it's weird because some people liked the uniform thing. At first, I didn't like it too much, but now I kind of like it because it looks a little bit more cleaner, I guess.
Sure.
They use the term of like NASCAR. You don't see logos everywhere. And I could see that, but now slowly UFC is putting their own logos on the shorts.
Yeah.
Now I see monster logos.
Yeah.
Well, before it was like no, like well, the cage filled with logos.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So here you go. That looks like a NASCAR to begin with. Okay, we can argue that it doesn't. You can't see that on the fighter, so the fighter looks a little bit more professional. But now I'm like starting to see the monster logos on the shorts.
Right.
I guess not on every fighter. I guess some fighters maybe are being sponsored, but I guess maybe they paid UFC enough money where
Right.
UFC is just letting it slide. But we kind of going back to the sponsor thing on shorts again.
Yeah.
When we try to like take it away, but now since you're getting paid more and UFC is making more money from those people, we'll let you slap your
Right.
sponsors. Wait, I thought we're not doing sponsors, but now we
Right.
are.
It's complicated. But so this was my assumption. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would assume because there's no regulation on the sponsorships in Bellator that the higher level Bellator fighters like that are contending for titles and stuff could probably be making more money because of their sponsorships than the lower level UFC guys that aren't able to do that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my assumption was accurate. That's why I think we're seeing guys like Ben Askren, for example, which obviously he's got he's got his work cut out for him going forward. But he was undefeated in Bellator, correct? Until he finally got to come to the UFC. He was probably making more money as a champion in Bellator than I don't know, maybe not. I could be wrong about him because he became a pretty big name right off the bat.
Right.
But who's the guy that he just won the last big event?
Ben Askren just won?
No. Guy that just came from Bellator that just won a big fight a few weeks ago.
Chandler.
Yes. Okay, so when I was watching that fight. I was with a group of people. I was over at my brother's house, and we were talking about like this guy's never fought in the UFC, and he's fighting a top contender.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, man? I'm like, and it was based on our first conversation about the sponsorship thing and me making these assumptions. I'm like, honestly, being a top guy in Bellator, coming into the UFC with no, people not having a lot of expectations because he's never fought in the UFC. I instantly was like, that's who I got winning. And I didn't really know shit about who did he even fight. I don't even remember anymore.
Freaking Dan Hooker? I think that's his name. Dan? Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, Hooker, his last name.
Yeah. either way, I was just I immediately was like, dude, based on the way things are going in MMA right now, based on my understanding, which is fairly limited, but talking to you, I got a little bit of insight into that. I'm like, I'm thinking that the reason he wasn't already in the UFC is because he was probably better off making more money through sponsorships and stuff in Bellator, and has dominated enough in the Bellator ranks that the UFC had to pay him to come out.
Had to pay him.
And I think that's probably, if they continue with this whole Reebok thing and this whole try to keep everything super clean and uniform in the UFC, I think you're going to see probably a lot more of that. A lot of guys come out of Bellator and immediately make an impact.
Yeah, and also like vice versa too. Some people from UFC coming to Bellator,
leaving and going to Bellator. I didn't even think about that.
Like in my weight class, we just have like 3 new UFC fighters, big names.
Wow,
big names. Corey Anderson, he like left UFC. Also, one of the guy who retired long time ago, Anthony Johnson, I think his name is.
That's a definite name.
Yeah, like I should know it, like, cause he's 205er, and we have Rumble Johnson and oh my God, the another guy, the Cuban kid. Wow, I can't remember nothing today. But yeah, like three big names came from UFC to Bellator, and now like all the eyes gonna be on it.
Yeah.
So that's good for me.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, okay, there's not too many 205ers in Bellator. Okay, cool. I'll have a little bit easier path. Right now, 3 more guys hopped in. I'm like, oh snap. Okay, this is gonna be much tougher. But now I'm looking at it. All those guys are like, the whole world got their eyes on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, if they're looking at them and the division, people gonna be looking at me too. If I get matched with these guys, like, that's good for me. So it's like, hey,
yeah.
like this is a win. This is a good. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's looking about it, especially now since they got the tournament going on for the 205ers. So I think I just barely not made it.
Yeah.
Like, I could have been in it, but they thinking word on the street is probably, I don't know if I can mention it or not, but maybe if someone gets hurt, maybe I can hop in.
Yeah.
But who knows? So
that was all my assumptions too, because I knew you had I didn't know your exact record, but I knew you had a great record, and then fighting in you're undefeated in Bellator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, you just keep working your way up in Bellator, make your money with sponsorships and stuff there, and then next thing we know, we're gonna be seeing you fighting on the big stage.
Yeah,
that'll be fucking cool, right?
Yeah, and with the UFC, it's almost like UFC did call me halfway through my first Bellator fight.
Okay.
Because we knew that during the Contender Series, they want to make a point for the show. It's like, okay, fireworks, and if you did awesome, if you did some dancing or something silly, oh yeah, you're a character, people like you,
right?
So we're gonna put you in just because you're making yourself look dumb on TV,
right?
We're gonna throw you in. I'm like, so my fight was so I was the only one not to get signed, but most people still get called even if they don't get signed,
right?
Just because they got some recognition, and it's a big deal just to even get invited to Contender Series. So if there's some kind of like last minute drop up or something, they would call you.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was my situation, or if it was like short notice or what, but yeah, halfway through the Bellator card, they called us and they asked like if I want only like one fight deal with Bellator or a multi-fight deal. So I know I can go to UFC whenever my contract ends. I'm not rushing it. Bellator likes me and I like them, and I do feel I'll have maybe a little bit more better recognition at the Bellator. And at the end, it's about making living.
Right.
Like, I could chase that fame in UFC or whatever, because again, that's what like some people, they exchange a little bit less money just to be in UFC
for recognition.
And they do bonuses, which is a great win. If you like do a knockout or a great submission or a great fight, they'll give you bonuses, a nice big chunk. But I don't know, some people say like, oh, you don't get treated well. I mean, I don't know. Like, I had good experience at the Contender Series, but I guess I would have to fight a lot of times in UFC to like notice how people get treated. And a lot of people say that, so I don't know. And some people, that's why they left UFC, because of that. And at the end, it's about making a living, making money.
And I think if you're making a living in Bellator, stick with that. But I think if it would also translate, like if you're making money in Bellator, you're obviously doing something correct. Like you're doing something well. And at a certain point, like you're not going to get overlooked. Like the UFC's not going to miss that to where you're probably have a lot bigger likelihood to also make that living in the UFC. Because if you're making money in Bellator, they're not paying dudes to go get their ass beat every week.
Yeah.
Or every week, every fight. So yeah, if you're making money in Bellator, I would think that you're just continuing to increase your likelihood of having a good payday in the UFC anyway.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, yeah, I would definitely. I hate to label it chasing money, but I would definitely that would be my biggest priority is make sure you're getting paid. Fuck the fame. The fame could come later, as long as you're making a living. And that's the other thing. Instant gratification. Like if you rush your way into the UFC. Just because, you might get more recognition or fame or whatever, you also might get your fucking ass kicked and then be a nobody immediately too.
Right, you're gonna be cut just like that.
Right.
And it was weird how with the Chandler's fight, like UFC does a lot of production, promoting. Yeah. They have like so many more cameras on the cage. Because I was watching the UFC fights and Bellator fights, and it was the stupidest thing. Like I didn't pick up on them. Like I'm trying to see like if you would have like UFC fights on TV and Bellator fights on the TV next to another TV. Apparently, they have like more cameras, better angles, so the fight just looks so much better. While watching Bellator, they might not pick the best angles.
Right.
So that's why I thought Chandler would lose. I thought he would get picked apart because of how good they made the other guy look.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, the other guy's a stud. They have like everywhere I go on Instagram is just him. Like nothing much about Bellator, but it's all UFC guys, crazy knockouts, da. This Dan Hooker is gonna like rip through Chandler. Chandler walked in, just whack. I was like,
dude, he looked great.
I was like, oh snap. All right, like
yeah, exactly. He looked fucking good, man. I was impressed immediately, and I'd never. That was the first time I'd ever seen him.
Yeah,
I'm still a big fan of MMA, but I don't consume it to the level that I did a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So I'm not super familiar with some of these up and coming guys, and the fact that he was a Bellator guy, they, like you said, they just don't get as much recognition. But once he came in there, and I made the assumption that we had talked about, like this guy might be better than we think he is, based on the way the money situation is between those two organizations. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, man, he looked fucking incredible.
He wrecked him.
Man, that was awesome. All right, so I want to hit on one more topic that's just going to be more entertaining for the true MMA people out there, and then we'll probably wrap it up. We've been going forever. Well, I guess two questions. One, who's your favorite fighter of all time?
That is interesting because with each year of me looking at MMA, I had like more and more new people. Mm-hmm. So when I first started watching MMA, this was in Brockport when I was not surrounded by MMA people.
Right.
I was first looking at Nick Diaz.
Yeah.
That was one of the biggest names. Then I was looking a lot in Chris Lieben.
Okay.
Chris Lieben was like...
He hasn't been around in a while.
I think he just finished with bare knuckle boxing. He just had a fight, I think, last week, and I think he might have retired. Then it was a lot of the Thiago Silva. He fought in overseas a little bit too, because I think he got cut from UFC for some like crimes or something with his wife. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But yeah, he was definitely another person I was looking up to. So it was kind of in order. It was Nick Diaz, then it was Chris Lieben, then Thiago Silva or Alves Silva. Yeah, that was a while ago.
There's a lot of both of those.
Yeah, a lot names. Of both those. then I started kind of looking a little bit at Cerrone, but not too much. Then when McGregor came in, I was like looking at him. So as right now, it's almost like I don't have one.
Yeah.
I definitely liked like Chris Lieben just because he was. I would like watch his interviews, and he would just talk about his life and all the struggles he goes through, and I was
Right.
like, oh, he's not hiding anything. He would, in one interview, they were asking him like, why did you overlook the opponent in your last fight? And he's like, because I'm an idiot. I'm like, that's the most honest answer,
Yeah.
and like you can't hate him for that. So even though like he had like crazy ups and downs, it's just like I liked him as a person
For sure.
and he wasn't like sugarcoating. Nate Diaz also was for a while I was looking into recently, but as right now, oh man. Now I'm just kind of bouncing back and forth. I
Between
don't
a lot
have
of
like a
people.
very specific person right now.
Yeah. No, I get that. Okay, then the last question. This is just the fun. This is just the fun question. Who do you think who's the GOAT? Who do you think is the greatest? It doesn't matter, like not pound for pound, just who do you think is the greatest fighter period ever?
I had no idea what GOAT meant last year. I'm like, GOAT? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Like, the hell is a
I remember
GOAT?
when I learned what GOAT meant too. Somebody said it to me and I was like, what the fuck does that? It sounds like an insult. If you don't
That's
know
what I was
it means.
thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it means greatest of all time?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't care. Like, when I started wrestling, people would tell me all these names of all these people who like went undefeated
Right.
throughout their whole careers, all these Olympic wrestlers. I'm like, I don't care.
Right.
It's like I don't know. It's like I'm just doing me and whatever. So greatest of all time type of thing. It's so bizarre to me a little bit
Yeah.
because it's almost like I look at it almost like a video game. You have all these crazy characters.
Yeah.
But yet all these crazy characters can beat each other and win the whole video game.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they like different weight classes and
Different weight classes makes it hard. It makes it hard to
because
narrow
it makes
down
a
to one.
style different.
Yeah, completely.
It throws the whole style off. So it's like I
Like
have to be expert on the lower weight classes,
Right.
and I have to be expert on the big weight classes.
Yeah, it's not like you could take Fedor Emelianenko and I don't know,
Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse, and obviously they could never fight each other. But even if we just did like a hypothetical, but what if they weighed the same amount? Who would win? It's like it's impossible to know because the styles are so different because of their size and their weight.
Yeah, and if we do make them weigh the same, like who do we make Mighty Mouse heavier?
Right.
But then he's not gonna be able to move.
Right.
And if he would be able to move like that, then he probably would tear all his joints apart because big people don't move like that.
Exactly.
So it's such a bizarre thing. I just think like, no, he is amazing. He's amazing. He's amazing. He's amazing. I try not to almost like get into it because that's part of me thinks it's a bit of a preference of like because you like the person.
Right. That's how it is in like in any other sport because this debate goes for every
Forever,
sport. Everyone
everywhere.
always talks about it. It's always a conversation. Fuck, you can turn on any sports channel right now and they're probably going to talk about Tom Brady being the GOAT or Michael Jordan versus LeBron, who's the GOAT between those two or whatever. There's always that conversation. It's just such a there's always going to be the debate, like because it does come down to a lot of times who do you like more.
Yeah.
When you've got guys that have accomplished so much that it's just insanely overwhelming and you're trying to compare the two, inevitably it's going to come down to at some point who do you like more.
Yeah.
But this is my thing with the LeBron Jordan debate. I actually like Michael Jordan more than I like LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to a difference in the way people's minds work. Like I am just a purely logical person. Like like the only thing, I think the biggest downfall, quick background, the reason him and I know each other is because he used to work with my ex-girlfriend. And I think the main reason that her and I had trouble with our relationship is she thinks extremely emotionally, I think extremely rationally and logically, and that those two things clashed. So anyway, that's irrelevant. But when I think logically about who I think the greatest is, it has nothing to do with who I like better. I like Michael Jordan more than I like LeBron James by a massive magnitude, to be honest. Nobody thinks that. Everyone thinks I hate Michael Jordan because I say LeBron James is better than him.
Yeah.
I say LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan because LeBron James is better at every aspect of basketball than Michael Jordan was for the most part. Has nothing to do with whether or not I like him. And a lot of people want to argue with me because they just like LeBron or they like Michael Jordan more. So, but it is hard to ignore that. It's hard to ignore when two people are so incredible, or three or four or five people are so incredible that you're trying to compare them and determine who's better. It's hard not to bring up who you just like more.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking, I like Khabib's last fight, that raised a lot of question between is it him or John Jones.
Right.
And it's so bizarre because sure, John Jones has these cool finishes and cool moves, while Khabib has kind of had that standard just go kill, dun.
It's not pretty.
It's not pretty, but he got the job done. Then a lot of people were talking about how, oh no, John Jones is better than Khabib because John Jones has had title for so long and he defended it so long. And I'm thinking, well, he got a title by accident. Rashad Evans had to back out and John Jones stepped in and he won the title. What if we would have gave Khabib a shot long time ago? Would he have won the title long time ago and then just defended it forever?
Well, and I guess he did retire technically, but he's coming back.
He might come back.
He's definitely coming back.
But
what if he continues to hold that title for even longer now? Then you fall into that same argument.
Exactly, but I do feel politically they almost tried not giving him a title shot. I don't know if that's true or not, but I feel he would have won the title forever ago.
You think?
And he would have. Well, I'm maybe wrong because, again, I don't look too deeply into fighters.
Right.
But since of how dominant he is, I feel he maybe should have gotten that title shot much longer ago. And then he would have defended it for so many times, just like how John Jones has been defending his.
So and here's my rebuttal to that for John Jones. Because I started watching, when I was most, consuming the most MMA content, if you will, was when John Jones was really young. When he first started, he first came into the UFC, he was so fucking dominant immediately against the guys that he was fighting. I think he showed that he deserved that title, that chance at the title, because he fucking won easily and has beaten everybody since then. I think the only reason he didn't get a title shot earlier is because he just didn't have hardly any fights. He was so young. He was only 21 or 22 when he got the title. I mean, that was when Rashad Evans got hurt and he stepped in and got that title shot. That was it was a few weeks before my first bodybuilding competition. So it was in 2000. It was 2011, early 2011. It was the winter of 2011 that he got that title shot. I want to say he was 21 or 22. He was so fucking young, and it was I think the only reason he didn't get a title shot earlier was just because he didn't have enough. He was so young and so inexperienced and hadn't had that many fights that it was we can't give this guy a title shot yet. He's really got to prove himself. But he fucking obliterated everyone at that point. I mean, his one quote unquote loss, I watched that fight live too with is it Matt Hamill, the deaf guy?
Yeah.
Is that his name? Matt Hamill, or am I getting him?
Hamilton. But yeah,
I mean, he was shitting on him. It wasn't even close. It was just the 12-6 elbow. It was a DQ basically. So he was dominating that fight. He won that fight, but on paper it looks like a loss.
Yeah.
So, but either way, my opinion, and most people disagree with me on this, I think the greatest fighter of all time is Fedor. I think Fedor Emelianenko is the greatest fighter of all time.
I used to think that too.
Yeah.
But now just because he's been losing, he kind of
Yeah.
like faded off of it.
The thing that sucks for him is that he was so good so early on in the sport. Like, the sport had just come into existence a handful of years before he was in. He just needed to be born several years later.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell me, like, a prime Fedor Emelianenko wouldn't fucking work all these current heavyweights. I think he would just shit on all these guys. I think every single one of them. The problem is now he's, like, in his 40s, and he can't fight anymore, you know? I mean, he's had a lot of losses, but it would almost be like if Khabib or Jones or something just kept fighting way beyond their prime is kind of what happened to him. Because over in Pride, he was fighting guys that ended up that were elite UFC heavyweights, but just in Pride.
Yeah.
And because it was before the UFC was as big, and he, again, making more money over there. It was just different. But, again, I think if Fedor was in his prime right now, I think he would be right there in that discussion, because I don't think there's any heavyweight that could fight, that would stand a chance against him. I mean, he fought the big, you know, like Ngannou, for example. He fought lots of guys like Ngannou in Pride, huge, but even bigger than Ngannou. I mean, because they didn't have, like, weight limits over there.
Yeah.
I mean, he was fighting like 300-pound bruisers over there, and it was easy for him. The only fights that were even challenging for him were guys that ended up being like UFC champions. Anyway, that's always my argument. And a lot of the, like, when I get into that debate with people, sometimes they're younger guys who are more into the sport currently than I am, whereas I was more into the sport 10, 12 years ago when Fedor was in his prime. And so I don't know. Like I said, like we've both said, there's really no way to debate this one because you've got different weight classes and different time periods and stuff. But
now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, why did they even like come up with such a topic? Let's find out who's the greatest of all time. It's like, now it's such a, like, just messes with your mind, and you can't come up with a thing. So when they were debating between Khabib and Jones, is there an actual thing where they actually hold the title of the greatest of all time that might maybe help them financially? Or is it just public, not on paper type of bragging rights?
It's just perception. And the thing is, no one's ever going to be, because people are always going to disagree. Right. So there's no, even if there was like a tangible thing, like even if the UFC created something where like you got something, like a trophy that you held for being the greatest of all time, people are still going to disagree with it and say that's bullshit. He's not the greatest.
Yeah.
I think the reason that conversation is so prevalent is just because it's fun to talk about.
And it drags people in.
It is. It's a debate that like everyone has, because everyone it is an opinion. There isn't anything, there's nothing that you can do to make yourself absolutely 100% the greatest in every single person's eyes. Yeah. There's gonna be people that are always gonna disagree, and so it creates a debate, and it's like a conversation that's fun to have. It gets heated sometimes because people get like emotionally attached to their guy. I do with LeBron, and again, LeBron's not even my guy. Like I said, people think that I'm just like this obsessive LeBron fan. LeBron's probably not even in my top 5 favorite players of all time. I've watched this guy play since the beginning of his career. I watched a lot of Michael Jordan, most of Michael Jordan's career. Granted, I was younger, but either way, like I've seen the guys play. You can compare the statistics. You can compare the competition they faced, the competition that was on their team, their coaching, the markets they played in, wins, losses, championships, shooting, all these different metrics that you can compare. And to me, it's overwhelmingly in LeBron's favor, even though I like Michael Jordan more than him. But most people, they want to debate who. It's also easy to say, like, the guy that's currently in the public eye. Khabib Well, I mean, Khabib and Jones, but even more so Khabib because he's fighting more frequently than Jones is right now. It's easy to be like, no, I just watched this guy fight last week, and he's dominating everyone. He's undefeated. He's the greatest. You can't question that. It's like, no, I can question it. I can definitely, yeah. Fedor has lost several fights now at the end of his career, so yeah, on paper his record isn't as good.
Mm-hmm.
But go back and watch the 30 plus fights that he had during the period that he would be considered in his prime, like Khabib is now, and then tell me that he can't be in the discussion because he has losses and Khabib doesn't. There's just always a way to debate it.
And also kind of like different promotion thing. Like we don't even know what's happening like in Asia and Europe.
Right.
Like that's just like we're not focusing on it because all we see is kind of UFC and we picking out greatest of all time only in that promotion. While right now it's like, yeah, Chandler walked in, we didn't think much of him, and he just wrecked the guy. It's like, okay, like, wait, so we thought Chandler was going to lose and get picked apart by this crazy guy, and the guy couldn't even throw one punch. No. Chandler walked in, and so it's like, I feel like we need to look into different promotions a little bit more and include them versus just what UFC guys have done.
Well, and that's the same thing with the Fedor situation. Is a lot of guys don't realize that at the time Fedor was in his prime, Pride is really where all the best fighters were fighting. Yeah. And then they were starting to transition into the UFC. So it was completely, Pride was very different than the UFC. They weren't fighting in an octagon. There were a lot of the rules were different. Mm-hmm. Even the rounds and stuff were different. I think there were different length of rounds and different. I don't remember specifically. It's been so long ago, but I don't think there were 3 5-minute rounds in Pride. No. I think it was different. I think they were structured differently. I mean, you could soccer kick people. Like you could kick people in the head while they were on the ground and you were standing. Like there's just different rules and stuff too. So I don't think they had the 12-6 elbow rule in Pride. There's a lot of, which I don't think they should in the UFC either. What do you think about that?
I don't think it's that much big of a deal.
I don't
like
either.
Maybe kicking someone when they're on the ground. Okay,
I understand
maybe
that
then it's a little bit more safety. The guy on the bottom, it's kind of already done. Maybe he's not looking at the person right away. But the elbow thing, it's like, if you're on top of me and you're raining down punches and elbows, slightly different angle of some specific elbow. Because most promotions let you do 12-6.
Do they?
They're just like, yeah, go ahead. It's just whatever. So, like when I fought in a fight, what I lost, they said, oh, you can grab a clavicle bone and like rip on that if you want. I was like, holy shit, that's crazy. But then I'm thinking about it. No one's going to do that. How hard is that? When we're grappling, rolling around, no one is ever going to try to be like, I'm going to grab your bone. No, I'm going to punch you in the face. Like, no, like you're really going to go on something that's has nothing to do with anything. Maybe on someone who doesn't know how to fight, maybe. Right. That's the first thing you grab on. But in the fight, like, no one's going to do that. So, yeah, that 12-6, it's just like such a small little difference.
Right.
It's like, no, we don't want you to hit him. It's like, that's all we're doing the whole fight is smashing each other.
The whole point of the whole sport. Yeah. Oh, and that's John Jones' only loss is because of that. So it's like, it goes back into this GOAT debate. It's like, yeah, he has a loss on his record and Khabib doesn't. Yeah, but it's a bullshit loss.
It's a bullshit loss.
Yeah. So, anyway, all right. Well, we covered enough. We covered all that. We could I could do this all day.
Yeah.
Like I say that every episode. I could sit here and talk all day. This might be the longest I've done so far. I just progressively keep going longer each time. So, anyway, thanks to everybody for watching. Thank you for coming out, man. It's been a blast. It's been cool. Probably have to do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
Once you sign that first UFC contract, I'll bring you back in.
Awesome.
There it is. All right, man. We're good.